Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Wednesday, November 5th, 2003. The City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Lujan, Labange, Ledlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weiss, Stein, Padilla, 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session. Now, colleagues, I'd like to ask for some special attention and patience and consideration this morning. It's going to be a hectic one. We have on the agenda several important items. We have a handful of commissioners seeking confirmation or reappointment. We also have, I believe, half a dozen presentations this morning. A couple of the commission appointments do have planes to catch. So unless there's a big objection, what I'd like to do is go through the agenda, dispense with consent items. We will take votes on confirmation of commissioners and then begin with presentations. Does that sound okay? Okay, seeing no objection, Madam Clerk, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Zine moves, Mr. Villaraigosa seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Smith moves and Mr. Cardenas seconds.
On the regular agenda, Mr. President, item number 1 is an item noticed for public hearing, and the applicant consents to continuance to April 24th, 2004.
Okay, colleagues request to continue item number 1. Seeing no objection, item 1 is continued. Next item, please.
Items 2 and 3 are also public hearing items. They are Planning Land Use Management Committee reports. I believe there is a card on item number 2.
We do have a card on item number 2. We'll call that special. On item 3, we do not have a card from members of the public wishing to address the council. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed on item number 3. Any request to call item number 3 special? Seeing none, let's open the roll on item number 3, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
There is item number 4 is a public convenience and necessity in Council District 12, and a motion is required to grant the application.
Okay, members, item number 4 currently before us, a matter in District 12. Do we have a motion? Mr. Smith.
President, move the following: to determine that the issuance of a liquor license for Roscoe Boulevard Reseda Supermarket at 8323 Reseda Boulevard, number 101-105, will serve the public convenience or necessity and will tend to not to create a law enforcement problem. Number 2, that grant the application for determination of public convenience and necessity for the sale of beer and wine only for off-site consumption at Roscoe Reseda Supermarket at 8323 Reseda Boulevard, number 101 through -105, and instruct the city clerk to transmit the determination to the State Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control as required the findings under Business Professional Code Section 23958.4.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Colleagues, that's a motion on item number 4. Let me also, for the record, mention I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on item number 4. Public hearings being satisfied. Is there any further discussion on item number 4? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 5 is a public convenience and necessity in Council District 10, and I believe Councilmember Ledlow requests to continue this matter to November 18th.
Okay. Colleagues request to continue item number 5. Without objection, item 5 is continued. Next item,
Items
please.
6 through 10 are also public hearing items. Council should open the hearings and continue the hearings and ordinances to November 26th.
Okay. Colleagues, items number 6 through 10 now before us, and I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on these items. Public hearings are opened and without objection continue to November 26th. Next item.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 11 through 36, and there are commissioners, items 11 through 17.
Let's hold the commissioner considerations temporarily on the desk, leaving items 18 through 36 before us. On items 11 through 36, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. Public hearings have been held in committee. A motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Any specials? Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Item number 20, please.
Item 20, called special by Mr. Reyes. Any other specials? Any other specials? Seeing none on the balance of the items, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Items for which public hearings have not been held, items 37 through 50, 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, items 37 through 50 are before the council today. I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council on these items. Public hearings are open. Public hearings are closed. Any specials? Items 37 through 50. Seeing no requests for specials, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items 51 and 52, items for which public hearings have been held. Item 51, Rules Elections Committee report has been submitted and distributed to the council members.
Okay, colleagues, items 51 and 52 now before us. Mr. Garcetti?
I'd like to ask if we can continue 52 until next Wednesday.
I would object to continuing 52. I would like to have 51 and 52 called special.
Okay. 51 and 52 called special by Ms. Misikowski. Next item, please.
Okay. Item 53 is an item for which public hearing has not been held.
We do have a card on item 53. Let's call that special.
The next items are the closed sessions, items 54 through 64. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
We'll hold all closed session items on the desk.
Going back to the items called special, the commissioners, items 11 through 14, public hearing has been held in committee, and those are for various area planning commissions.
If we can have all the commission nominees for the various area planning commissions, if we can ask them to come forward at this time. Sergeants, if I can ask for an extra chair or two.
Ms. Foster, Mr. Brogan, Ms. Humphries, and Ms. Moreno.
Okay. And I know Ms. Humphries is here. She stepped out momentarily. She'll be back in just a minute here. Colleagues, we do have committee reports recommending approval of all these commission nominees. Are there members wishing to be heard at this time? Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Colleagues, I had the pleasure of meeting and having a short chat during our committee process with each of the commissioners. And I just want to again thank them for their hard work, for their civic participation. It's a rich group of people with vast backgrounds, diverse backgrounds. And I just believe that with their type of stewardship, we can continue pushing forward within our city to improve our development, to improve our way in which we work with communities. And they bring a lot of experience to the table, very diverse. I just want to take this time to thank them all for their hard work. And again, I'll hold back my questions, and please, thank you so much.
Okay. Mr. Weiss, followed by Ms. Gruhl, Mr. Zine, and Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a good week in Mr. Reyes's committee last week with some terrific nominees. I guess Mr. Fleming, we proved Mr. Fleming the other day. He sort of was the advance party, and now you're all here, and I'm really delighted that you're going to embark upon this term of service to the city of Los Angeles. I want to take a special moment, though, to say a word about my constituent, Joyce Foster, who I'm so glad you're here, Joyce. I'm so glad that West Los Angeles is going to continue to have you serving on a city commission. You've been on the Building and Safety Commission. Now you're going to do this. And you thought building and safety was tough, huh? Well, you know better than anybody else the sort of forces that get aligned for and against these sort of development projects on the west side of Los Angeles. And we all should be so grateful that we're going to have you right there in the middle, calling it as you see them, playing it by the book, and giving everybody a fair shake, and really showing not just your fellow members on the West LA APC, but everybody else exactly how that job should be done. So I just wanted to say a personal thank you to you. Look forward to working with you in the years ahead. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
And
Ms. Gruhl.
Mr. President,
Yes.
thank you for appointing Joyce Foster to this commission. Thank you very much.
That wasn't too tough. She and I served together on the Building and Safety Commission, so that's where I learned how to run a meeting. Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I want to stand in support of the four wonderful people in front of us. I have had the pleasure of knowing Jeanette and Joyce and Nate, and we have not had the pleasure of getting to know each other, but we'll listen to your presentation as well in the Plum Committee. I had a meeting last night in my district, and we had about 200 people where planning and land use issues are critical to them, about balancing the needs of the communities and the neighborhoods, about ensuring that neighborhood councils have a voice, that the planning commissioners listen to their opinions. And I know all of you are particularly cognizant of the need to balance in our city, and I appreciate that you're willing to take time. Serving on an APC and planning commission is not an easy task, which I'm sure Mr. Padilla did not tell you that before he appointed you, that it was not an easy task. But I want to thank my constituent, Nate, who's going to be a wonderful appointee, and look forward to working with you in our community. So I wish you luck. And know, though, that you have council members here who are interested in working with you on some of the toughest things we have to deal with, which is development issues in our neighborhoods. So good luck, and see us as a resource, and want to make sure that you understand that this is a very important appointment to all of us, and we've done a great selection in all four of you, so congratulations.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning to commissioners. Nate, I've known you for a long time. I know your commitment to the city. And Ms. Foster, I know of you. We've never worked together. And the other two representatives, I don't know you, but I understand that you're willing to serve in this very important commission position. And what we see represented here is the various parts of the city of Los Angeles: the Valley, the South part, the West Side, the Central, the East Side, and it's all a matter of working with the communities. My focus in the neighborhood is to help neighborhood councils. And as we see the neighborhood councils getting more involved, and then it comes to your commission, to find out how we can blend that together. Development, we can't stop the city, but while we want to progress, we also have to consider, and Nate, I know you're an expert in traffic, we need to do something to help that. So when we see these development projects come forward to your commissions, your respective commissions, please understand the concern that we have to do to maintain some semblance of quality of life for the people who exist in all the communities that we represent throughout the city of Los Angeles. So I commend you all. It's a challenging task. It's a difficult task, but it's rewarding. And I also want to acknowledge our president. Normally the mayor makes appointments. In this particular case, our council president made the appointments, and I'm supporting all of you in the positions and wish you well. And just make sure those communities know that you're there to support them and to improve their quality of life in all areas possible. Congratulations to all of you.
Mr. Labange.
Well, Mr. President, with my time, Commissioner designees, would you please give us a little brief on the importance of planning and what your goals are? Nathan, if you start with you.
Excuse me. My goals are to provide a fair opportunity to both the applicant proposing a project as well as those individuals and groups who have a vested interest in a particular area, that each and all have a fair hearing.
Well, I would say one of the most important things that I would like to see is a working together, the community and the developers with the council office to get the best, most responsible development in our communities.
As a 15-year resident of Northeast LA, I've seen a lot of changes in my time there, and one of my biggest concerns as a Planning Commission member is to ensure that things that happen in our community are sensitive to our cultural and historical resources in the area. We also have an incredible wealth of geographic features. I was part of the Arroyo Fest and also have testified before you, Councilmember Labange, on the LA River Ad Hoc Committee, and those things are also important to me as considerations for respectful development that enhances the community of life in Northeast LA.
My goal is to help to maintain the importance of the standards of the City of Los Angeles for our living and working families that are here. Thank you.
Well, members, I would greatly appreciate that, because one thing that's great about our form of government is we can't do it all as elected officials, and we count on commissioners. And these selections here are great people who come from all parts of Los Angeles who are going to balance the needs. Not everybody is happy all the time, but to be fair and to protect the historic integrity, to work with the process and uphold the laws, and to inspire other people to get involved with it is all real important values. So I personally, on behalf of the 256,385 people in the 4th District, thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
I'm just looking at this panel of individuals. You're all going to go off in your different directions, serving on different commissions. But I think this is a perfect example of what all of our commission appointments should look like. Very diverse, representing business interests, labor interests, people who have grown up and have experienced different parts of what Los Angeles is all about. Unfortunately, in decades past, if you just look at the record, our commission appointments have not been this diverse. So I just wanted to compliment all of you and thank you for your volunteerism, and also thank your families for giving up your time away from them and all the many, many hours of good work that you're going to put forth for the betterment of those individual corners of Los Angeles, but collectively bringing a perspective that is really, truthfully, what our communities are really all about. I think having these commissions, when we're talking about land use issues, being cornered in different parts of the community, the Northeast Valley, South Valley, West Los Angeles, East Los Angeles. I think that's a wonderful change for Los Angeles, and I think mainly what it's brought about is this opportunity for us to put our best foot forward as a city and say we are diverse, not only in our workforce, but we are diverse in the decision-making policy places throughout the corners of Los Angeles. I just want to say that I love this picture. I think this is the way we should continue to go, and it's a great, great opportunity for us to showcase the fact that we have talented people who are willing to give of themselves all over the city. So thank you once again for putting your foot forward and saying, you know what, I'm going to volunteer, I'm going to be a part of the decision making. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I couldn't agree with Councilmember Cardenas enough. I love this picture, too. This is a great statement about the future of Los Angeles. While I'm looking forward to getting to know the three of you closest to me here, and I look forward to that, I want to take just a minute to say a word or two about the person on the other side of the table, who I've known for many, many years. Colleagues, we really have a great opportunity here to put a great Angelino in a position of leadership in Los Angeles. I've known Jeanette Humphreys for over a decade, and I can tell you right now that the leadership that she has played to make sure that the classified employees of LA Unified School District, that their voices are heard, their issues are heard, efforts to improve the safety and security of LA's schools has just been phenomenal. She represents nearly 40,000 classified employees throughout Los Angeles, and I think it's a real testament to the type of leadership that she's going to be able to bring to this city. And so, as well as being a great constituent of the 10th Council District and somebody that has played a large role on national issues throughout this country, we're looking forward to her leadership. Congratulations to each one of you. I'm sure today you're going to do just fine here in the next minute when we vote, but I couldn't concur more with Mr. Cardenas. You all have families, you have professions, jobs, you're giving of yourself, and you're doing it voluntarily. We appreciate that. We're here to help, we're here to assist, and we look forward to you advocating on behalf of the people of Los Angeles. So thank each and every one of you, and good luck. It's going to be an interesting journey as we go through many of the planning decisions that need to be carried out on a daily basis. So thank you again.
Ms. Mizikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the nice things that happen as a consequence of calling all the area planning commissioners to various area planning commissions up at one time is we really see how well that system is working. It's doing exactly what the Charter Commission intended. Let local decisions on local planning cases devolve to the local level. And listening to the comments made about all of you, but in particular knowing two of you very well myself, there aren't better representatives to be on that board making these decisions than the kind of experiences that you bring from business, from neighborhood, from past commission experience. It really says if we did one thing really, really right in our charter, we created area planning commissions. And I commend both the mayor and the council president for the appointments that we're looking at today, because it really shows the best of what is out there in our city working at this, willing to commit their time on a volunteer level to really make this city better and let citizens know in our city that there are citizens just like them sitting on these boards doing the right thing, listening, deliberating, and then making decisions that affect local lives, but making those decisions in the local community. So thank you, all of you. I really think this is one of the most stellar group of panelists that we've seen at one time sitting on a board, going and being willing to accept these challenges. So thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Many of the points I wanted to make on each individual has been made, so I don't want to be redundant. Again, thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Other members wishing to be heard on these appointments? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Congratulations, you're all confirmed, and thank you for serving the city.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Forthwith on these items, please. Mr. Ludlow, Ms. Mizikowski.
Mr. President, just wanted to acknowledge a distinguished leader to our chambers. He needs a little assistance in finding his way around, but I just want to acknowledge Councilmember Nate Holden, who's here today. Let's give him a round of applause.
Mr. Ludlow, don't let him too close to your desk and those buttons there.
We're trying to move this next item forthwith.
Ms. Misikowski.
Mr. President, I would just like, I think we can take up item 2. It was called special for the reason that a card was submitted. That card has been pulled. It was a card in support, and the recommendation of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee is to support this. It's a new hotel that will be built in the Westchester community. The arrangements have been made with the local hotel and service workers employee union to be part of that operation, so I move approval of item 2, and we don't need to continue, hold it.
Okay, if that card has been pulled and there's no other reason to call it special, let's proceed with the vote on item number 2. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
That is approved. Colleagues, we still have 3 additional commission appointments I'd like to take care of before getting to presentations. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mr. President, in honor of Mr. Holden's attendance here today, I move the entire agenda special.
I have 10 speaker cards from Mr. Holden. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item number 15 is a Public Safety Committee report recommending approval of Mr. Victor K. Sampson to the Police Permit Review Panel.
Okay, Mr. Sampson can come forward at this time. Colleagues, we have a committee report recommending approval of Mr. Sampson. Are there members wishing to be heard? Beginning with Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to urge the council's support of Mr. Sampson. For those of you who live in the San Fernando Valley, you've probably worked with Mr. Sampson in the past. He's one of those great community people who just, whenever you have something going on in the community, you call Vic. He's there to help. He loves the community. He's worked very hard in numerous capacities in Porter Ranch with our Design Review Committee and other things in the community, and has served as a commissioner in the past. And he knows how to get things done at City Hall, and he'll be a great commissioner. And I'm just honored to have him representing the 12th District on the Police Permit Panel. Thank you.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Sampson, he took the words right out of my mouth. You're a great leader in the Valley. You do wonderful things for the community, and it's really a privilege for the city to have this opportunity to take some hours out of your life on behalf of the people of this city. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
Mr. Zine.
Right down the line here. Mr. President, thank you. Victor, I know you are committed to this city. I know of your reputation, not only of the Valley, but the entire city, of getting things done. And the group of people you work with have been an inspiration to many that they get things done. And I know that your enterprise in life is to make things right for people, and you've done that. And with the Police Commission and the review panel, it's a very important element of public safety, and that businesses come to the city and they want to regulate, we want to regulate them in an appropriate fashion, and there'll be a whole arena for you to explore in that. And I know that our good friend Alan Scobin serves on the Police Commission, and there's a good relationship between you and Alan also with the review panel on the Police Commission. So I wish you well in that endeavor. It's a challenging task at best, but it does well to provide public safety for the people of Los Angeles. So I wish you well in that endeavor as you continue to make LA a better place for all. And congratulations, Vic.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. One, I want to thank you for your service, but I have a question for you, and I wanted to get some insight. As I review the Public Permit Review Panel, which is the body in which you're working with, you have a series of businesses that go through your review. They include pool rooms, massage technicians, escorts, dance halls, card clubs, arcades. These are uses that tend to create a disturbance when we're not involved with community groups. Right now we're in a position where we're working with neighborhood councils, we're working with area planning commissions. Is there, in your review or your understanding of the Police Permit Review Panel, do you think there's a relationship or a connection in which we can let the communities know about these permits that are coming down the pipeline before they find out they have a permit from the review panel? Is there any room there for that kind of notification where we don't stop business, but we at least let people know what's coming in their neighborhood?
Well, I think if it's possible to notify the community of a pending permit, we should do so. I'm not sure the process to do that at this point, but if there is a vehicle to do that with, I think I would support it.
as a commissioner, I would hope that perhaps I chair Planning, Land Use, and Management. If there's a way in which you can suggest how we can bring that together, because we need to be more familiar of how the process and the timing and all the legal parameters that are there. But if there is a way in which we can create that loop without causing more business to wait, that'd be something that perhaps we could save a lot of time in the future, avoid lawsuits, and let folks know, especially the council offices, that a particular business is coming in their neighborhood.
Well, if I can, I sure will.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Other members wishing to be heard on Mr. Sampson's appointment? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
Unanimous approval? Congratulations.
Thank you, Council President.
And thank you for your service. Forthwith on this item. Next item, please.
Item number 16 is confirmation of Mr. Ken Metz to the Board of Animal Services Commissioners. Public Safety Committee report recommends approval.
Okay. Members, item 16 now before us. We do have a committee report recommending approval. Is there any further discussion on this appointment? If not, then we're letting him off easy. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
Congratulations, you are confirmed. Mr. Labange?
Yeah, I just want to ask the Commissioner if he'd like to express any words to the Council, because I know the important role you serve for Animal Services.
Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to serve here in the city of Los Angeles, and I think the most important thing that I'm looking forward to is trying to do the best to educate all people about animals, their safety, their rights as well as ours, and to teach them not to fear animals, but to respect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Metz. You have been confirmed. We appreciate your service to the city.
Tell us your dog's name. I just want to know.
His name is Bay.
Bay.
Bay is from Guide Dogs for the Blind, and he is a black Labrador Retriever and almost 6 years old.
All right, let's hear it for Bay. All right, good job. Thank you.
He'll do more than I will.
Forthwith, please. Next item.
Item number 17 is a Transportation Committee report recommending approval of Mr. Joseph Chizik to the Board of Taxi Cab Commissioners.
Welcome, Mr. Cizik. Members, we have a committee report recommending approval of this reappointment. Members wishing to be heard, beginning with Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Good morning. Your commission has a plate full of activities. We hear frequently about the bandit cab situation in Los Angeles, and I know that the commission has taken a position against that. So I just want to bring that to your attention. I know the LAPD has a task force that frequently goes out and does enforcement with that. And the things that have come to my attention as far as the regulatory aspects of the bandit cabs, which are really hurting the legitimate cab industry in the city of Los Angeles. So just bring that to your attention. I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot about that as you serve on the commission.
We'll be dealing with that this particular year more aggressively than ever before, thanks to some legislation that has come down and has given us a little bit more muscle. And with the assistance of the LAPD, we believe we'll make some very significant inroads this year.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
Yes, I had an opportunity as the chair of transportation to meet with Mr. Cizik. Is that the correct pronunciation?
It's good enough.
Yeah, it's like Villaraigosa, right? And I can tell you that he's well informed on the issues, including some of the more controversial issues, and I'm looking forward to working with him and having a great relationship in the coming years, so congratulations.
We're very pleased that your committee is going to take such an active role, and we look forward to working very closely with you.
Ms. Misikowski.
As the council member of the district, newly part of the district where Mr. Chizik is from, I too support this. And I just want to say that again, this is a person who not only gives back at that level on the commission, because this is a reappointment, but I saw him just on Friday giving back to a Los Angeles Chamber task force dealing with the issues of aviation. And he is active in the Westchester Chamber of Commerce and really looking at the issue of LAX and the master plan and providing both the business perspective and the community perspective, but really doing it in a realistic way. So it doesn't, his participation, his giving back to the community doesn't just stop at the level of dealing with the significant issues on the Taxi Cab Commission, but across the board. And too, I just want to say thank you for that continued commitment, and I look forward to hearing from you and your insights on those other big issues that we're yet going to be facing.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Ms. Misikowski. Other members wishing to be heard? If not, let's open the roll on Mr. Cizik. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
Congratulations,
Thank you very
and
much.
thank you for your ongoing service to the
Thank you,
city.
Mr. President.
Forthwith, please. And do we have any other commission appointments to confirm today?
No, Mr. President, that concludes the commission appointments.
Okay, then let's turn now to the presentation segment of today's agenda, and let's begin with a presentation by Councilmember Zine.
I'm going to be joined by my distinguished colleague, Martin Ludlow, and Cindy Misikowski, Chair of Public Safety. We have a presentation this morning for members of our Los Angeles City Fire Department, and we all know about the devastation that took place in this state from San Diego on up, and we had LA City Fire personnel deployed from San Diego through other areas. We had them at Simi Valley, the Grand Prix Fire in San Bernardino, the Old Fire, San Bernardino Crest Line, Camp Pendleton Fire, the Cedar Fire in San Diego. The LA City Fire Department deployed 15 strike teams, 75 fire companies, and a number of personnel were called back to work to make sure we had coverage within the city of Los Angeles. And we wanted to make sure that we properly recognized and noted that in the city of Los Angeles, no structures were burned. However, there were, to date, 22 individuals who perished in fires, 740,000 acres burned, and 3,400 homes destroyed. None of those within the city of Los Angeles, and we want to acknowledge the fine work of our city firefighters, the ones on the ground, the ones in the air, the command staff that were able to protect the residents of the city of Los Angeles, the business of Los Angeles, at the same time provide service to other surrounding communities that were in desperate need of help. And we wanted to make sure that we did this in a proper fashion. So we have a beautiful plaque that we're going to be presenting to the Los Angeles City Fire Department, signed by all of us, including the mayor and all the elected representatives, expressing our appreciation for what they have done, those who were called back to duty, those who were sent away, those who were protecting our properties. Councilor Misikowski and I share an area where we have mountain fire districts, along with some of the other colleagues here, and those people were always thankful for what the fire department does. But this states in tribute and everlasting appreciation of the firefighters who selflessly braved the fires of October 2003 in Los Angeles County, San Bernardino County, San Diego County, and who risked their lives every day on behalf of their fellow citizens. The City of Los Angeles commemorates their extraordinary efforts that save lives, property, and the environment. Again, this is signed by all the elected officials from the Los Angeles City Council. And my colleagues have a few words to say, and then I want to have the representatives of UFLAC, the McCosker brothers, and also Chief Belmonte speak in appreciation. And we also have with us helicopter pilots that flew during the fire battles, as well as the ground crews. So I'm going to turn it over to ladies first. Councilmember Misikowski.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. I feel so privileged to be standing here behind and in front of, but really should be behind, this extraordinary group of people, men and women who are standing behind me, who represent not only the best of what LA City Fire Department is, but I dare say the best of the firefighters throughout this state. We do have the Mutual Aid Pact. You heard Councilmember Zine talking about how our firefighters were on the lines, on the front lines at every major battle. I dare say our firefighters are the ones who are called first to go out because they are the best trained, the most professional, the most able and ready and able to be equipped to do the job. They have in their own system, they can go and deploy and yet leave no station unmanned, no station at risk, no building, no person in this city at risk. They train for this, they do this day in and day out. This is their lives. But we all saw over the last few weeks how extraordinary those lives are, how extraordinary those lives are, putting themselves at risk to defend people, property, and defend all of us from the risk of the conflagration that we hope never does come. When we saw that fighting, particularly when we saw it close in our hills here at Porter Ranch, I know Mr. Smith was out there too, as was Mr. Zine. We saw the planning, the capability, the demonstration of holding that line. I don't think it's ever been more clear what that means than when you saw it over the last 2 weeks, when you saw that action, holding the line, protecting people. It just is, as I said, gives me extraordinary pleasure to be standing here with these folks who are in our stations day in and day out, not down here being recognized, but that we can take this time out to recognize this many of them for their superb, superb commitment is just awesome. And I am very pleased to be here and thank them. And this plaque is just a minimal kind of tribute to the recognition that they deserve, not only from us, but from people throughout the city. I think they've heard it. I think they've seen. And just a little, maybe political comment. Last week when I saw the governor-elect standing in front of a group of firefighters, thanking them, praising them, talking about the heroic actions that they took, I thought those firefighters should be holding a sign. And those firefighters' signs should say, "We are your VLF. We are your vehicle license fee," because that's where the money goes. It goes to defend our city, defend our public. This is where those dollars are extremely well spent. We get much more value for the dollars than the dollars we spend, and that's what's standing behind me today. So thank you, Mr. Zine.
Thank you, and Councilmember Martin Ludlow.
Thank you, Councilmember Zine and Councilmember Misikowski. She said it best. We need to make sure that that message is sent loud and clear, that it's one thing to stand in front of these individuals praising their work. It's another to be potentially taking the funding right out from underneath them that prevents them from doing what they did. I wanted to add that well, I guess on behalf of all the short people in Los Angeles, that the worst thing to do if you have that complex is to stand with firefighters. I'm very appreciative of this moment, let me tell you. Not only the fires in Southern California, which in addition to the governor-elect, we've also recently been visited by the President of the United States, who equally shared in the concern about the devastation that he witnessed. We're hopeful that he will also send a message of support and aid. But these also are the individuals that represented this great city in joining their brothers and sisters in New York City during the devastating attacks of 9/11. And whenever the duty has come in front of them, these individuals have responded. And so I am just so honored to be here with you today. Honored that Councilmember Zine took upon himself to present you all here today. And then obviously, as we're about to hear from Pat McCosker, for those individuals who fight to protect the firefighters. We are all equally indebted to you as well. Dennis Zine and I had an opportunity to go to San Francisco recently and participate in Fire Ops 101. And let me just say to everybody in the chambers here today, if you want to take just a small step forward in terms of understanding the fear and the trauma and the intimidation of the role that these individuals play each and every day, go take Fire Ops 101, ascend a 5 or 7 story building carrying a chainsaw, a hose, and fire gear, and an air pack, step over the top of that ladder and try to climb down the next side. If you have any ability to walk after that, because your body is shaking and trembling from the heights that you've just ascended, then at that point you know you're in the wrong career. You ought to be a firefighter, because that's what these individuals do every day. So thank you all so much for what you do. I'm looking forward to hearing from Pat McCosker and also identifying the great leadership of our fire chief, William Bamatri. Thank you.
Pat. Thank you, Madam President, members of the council, Councilman Zine, Councilman Ludlow, Councilperson Mizikowski. Thank you very much for having us in today. I can't tell you how much it means to firefighters to hear a thank you for what we've done. Before I get started, though, I want to say that last week it was blood, sweat, and tears, and today it's really thoughts and prayers that are with the victims of the fires. I mean, 3,500 people, families lost their homes, 22 individuals lost their lives, and our beloved brother Stephen Rucker paid the ultimate price and lost his life fighting the fire. Came down from the Novato Fire District to help here in Southern California, and God bless him, and our thoughts are with his family right now. But I do want to say thank you to all of you for recognizing what we do like this. This is very, very nice. I didn't get to go to the fires. You know, for 23 years I worked in the firehouses around the city on fire companies, and for about the last year I've been the union president, and I guess now I'm a spokesperson of sorts for these fine men and women behind me and for the other 3,300 in fire stations around the city. Normally when you ask a firefighter to describe what happened, or you talk to them about something like what these folks went through last week, what you hear is, you know, shucks, we're just doing the job, it was nothing. That's what I would have said a year ago myself. But since I didn't go to the fires, since I marveled at what they all did last week on the TV as well as you did, and since I now get to be their spokesperson, I'm going to embarrass them a little bit and tell you that it isn't just a job. It wasn't nothing, it was something. The dedication that it takes. We had people, the fires burned for about a week. We had people that were literally on the fire line for the entire week. We had people fighting to get the opportunity to man the rigs, the extra rigs that went up there. We had absolutely no shortage of volunteers. The difficulty was finding room for everybody that wanted to go. We all saw the walls of fire on television. Well, let me tell you, the long hours without a shower, without a decent meal, without a place to sleep other than someone's backyard or the hose bed of the fire truck or the tailboard of the fire truck, it just takes a tremendous amount of dedication. And it's the kind of thing that these folks behind me do without question and without fail. I guess the question would be, why do they do what they do, or why do we do what we do? And there are a lot of reasons. I won't lie to you, we don't mind making a paycheck so that we can take care of and protect our families as well for what we do, but that's only part of it. Another part of it, I think, would be the tremendous sense of dedication that we have to each other. We make no apologies for the fact that we call ourselves brothers and sisters out there, because that's really what we are. We rely very much on each other. And part of what motivates you when that wall of fire, I suppose, is coming, and when your lungs are seared from the smoke you've been breathing, and when the junk is in your eyes, is the knowledge that everyone on the crew is dependent on you, and you're dependent on them. So it is a real brother and sisterhood, and that's one of the reasons why we do what we do. Probably the most important reason, though, is the sense of dedication to the people that we protect. I mean, we really love the people of this city and the people that we were able to help out there in those 4 fires that Councilman Zine described. What can I say? Firefighters really are givers. Again, because I'm the spokesperson, I'm going to embarrass them and tell you that. Firefighters are givers, plain and simple. They were fighting to go down to those fires, fighting to do their best for the people, and they'd still be there on the line if the fires were still burning. So they are givers in every sense of the word. I'm very, very proud of them. I thank all of you very much for having us in here today and saying thank you to firefighters, and thanks for your continued support, because this group, this council right here, and the mayor that we have right now in this city have been more supportive of firefighters, I think, than any group in the history of the city of Los Angeles. So thank you very much on behalf of the people I represent.
Thank you, Pat. I'd also like to recognize there's Mike McCosker, who's somewhere, he's probably the short guy way in the back. And I also want to acknowledge that this presentation bears the names of all of my colleagues. It's through the efforts that we all appreciate, and all of our names are on this plaque. It's now time for the Chief of the Los Angeles City Fire Department, Chief Bamatri.
Well, thank you very much. Before I talk about our firefighters, I want to talk a little bit about my experiences yesterday. I spent the morning down in San Diego meeting with President Bush and the Governor-elect Schwarzenegger and Governor Davis. I want to thank the council for the excellent training they've given me. The fire chiefs down there were a little worried about how to deal with two governors, one outgoing, one coming in, and I can sympathize with Councilman Villaraigosa and Councilman Cardenas and certain Councilman Ludlow in dealing at the state level. And I said, don't worry, I deal with 15 council members, so I can help out. And what our objective is to get the governors to collaboratively put together a blue ribbon commission to review the fires and look at what improvements can be made. And we were able to get them to work together to make that announcement, which they have made, and we are participating in that. And the president was exceptional. We were able to actually get about a 15-minute briefing with a small group of fire chiefs to talk about the issues around this brush fire and his interest in the Healthy Forests program that he's promoting and some of the issues that we have locally. And the other thing that really highlights the council and the mayor here and the support that you give me, as they were briefing the president, one of the things that one of the fire chiefs brought up is that they, in most of the areas that they were fighting, they had the state standard of 30-foot brush clearance. And they said they wanted to increase that standard to what they have in many communities, 100-foot brush clearance. And I had to sit there and tell the chiefs that here in Los Angeles, we have 200 feet brush clearance because of the support. And I know the headaches many of you went through to have that, and I really do appreciate the support here. And then after that, the president and the governors went out to mix with the public as well as all of us in a larger group. There were about 500 firefighters there. And I noticed one lady was looking at my badge and kind of suspiciously, and then all of a sudden she threw her arms around me and wanted to thank me personally because one of our strike teams had saved her home down in the San Diego area. And then a number of the fire chiefs came up to me and complimented me about our firefighters. And I can't tell you how proud that made me feel and makes you feel for the tremendous support that you give us and for what it means to our firefighters and enabling them. And I think to punctuate the whole last week, I think was the experience I had out at Air Operations. We have two of our pilots here today, Rick Wheeler and Phil Clark. Was the morning that when I went out and saw the fire and came back and asked our people if they could drop water and meet the head of that fire coming through. And I want to say that what was announced down in San Diego was they reviewed the fires throughout the state, and when they came to our Simi fire, of the 9 fires that have historically burned through that area, this is the first time they've stopped that fire short of Malibu going out to the ocean, the first time which goes back for many, many years, a testament to the courage and dedication of our firefighters and certainly Los Angeles County and Ventura. But that morning when I came back and our helicopter pilots said that they could go out and do the water drops at basically what was sunrise, I had to go back and make the call to the incident commanders and try to, if you understand the process, this was a fire that was being managed by a CDF incident management team. We were part of that incident management, but it was their fire. So we had to convince them that it was time to do the water drops at 6 in the morning and not at 9 in the morning. As I got done making those calls and walked back out of Air Operations, all 4 of our helicopters were lifting off the ground simultaneously with the sunrise behind them, going off towards Porter Ranch into this huge column of smoke. And I tell you, I had shivers up my spine looking at what our people do on a day in and day out basis to protect the citizens. And as Pat mentioned, the dedication. We certainly recognize the firefighters behind me that participated in strike teams, but there were firefighters that stayed around at the station to staff our companies. And just to highlight it, and I don't say this in any denigration of San Diego. At one point, San Diego had 3 fire engines and 4 trucks covering their entire city. If that ever happened here, my head would be rolling down the council aisles. And it's because of your support that we were able to keep all of our stations staffed. We went down 4 rescue ambulances out of 115 was what our deficit was. And so that is through your support and that you've given us for the staffing and our people's willingness to come back and work and do whatever they could to do it. So again, it's a real celebration, certainly of our firefighters for what they do on a day in and day basis, but I also appreciate the support that you all give us to allow us to do our job to the best of our ability. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Zine. Mr. Zine. We have a couple of my colleagues.
I know that
are-
Fire Cadet Labange has a couple words to say,
Well, there-
I'm sure.
Yes, we have three
Okay.
council members that have asked to speak. Our first is Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. I had the pleasure of saying to our great 12th District resident, Chief Matri, the other day at the council meeting, my feelings on behalf of the residents of the 12th District in particular. And I'm glad that the firefighters are here today because I want you to hear this. I want you to take it back to your stations and the men and women in the department and the units you work with. While I appreciate what we've done to support the state of California and other areas of the state that have problems, I speak on behalf of the 250,000 residents of the Porter Ranch, Chatsworth area of the city of LA. And I want you to know how proud they all are of you. I've heard so many of them tell me over the last few days. They did an incredible job. As the chief said, we have a long history of fires starting in my district, burning through Dennis's, down through Sandy's, all the way to the ocean. In 1971-72, I think it was, we lost 400 homes in Chatsworth. About 1988, we lost another 40 or 50 in Porter Ranch. We have a long history of fires starting there and burning southward to the ocean. This time you drew a line in the sand. It's called the 118 freeway, and you deployed your resources there and you said, you will not pass this time. You will not get by us this time. We're going to stop you. And you did. And the next morning you went around to Porter Ranch as the fire moved eastward. And our fire helicopters, thanks to the chief, got up early and hit it when the fire was really going to hit Porter Ranch. Our helicopters were there instead of sitting on the ground watching. They were fighting it, doing the job, and our men and women of the department deployed all along Porter Ranch at all the cul-de-sac streets of Porter Ranch, and they said, you will not get by us this time. And I can't tell you, and the people that have been around Chatsworth a long time remember those devastating fires that have taken so many homes in the city of LA in the past, that this time you stood up and you said, you will not beat us, fire, we're going to beat you. And you did an incredible job. Not one single home was lost, not one single life was lost. The LA Fire Department stands tall amongst all the firefighters of this country as one of our greatest resources and assets. And the people of my community want you to know that we love you guys, every single one of you. And you go back today to your units and you tell them, on behalf of the people of the 12th District in particular, God bless you and thank you for being firefighters.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Councilmember Cardenas.
I say very respectfully and proudly, we have the best in the business here in the city of Los Angeles. But at the same time, I want to say that we also do appreciate, and fortunately and unfortunately, everybody in California and people across the nation got to see what you men and women do every single day. You get up in the middle of the night, you answer the call, and you fight the fires. You save lives, you save property, you save communities. You are an integral part of what we need to see happen. Yet at the same time, you stand before the body that is going to be making tough decisions in the near future. I hope that the goosebumps that we feel in hearing the stories and the truth about the men and women sacrificing their lives, doing it willingly, doing it every single day, and doing it without reluctance isn't lost at the time that we have to figure out how to make sure you have the resources, you have the equipment, and your men and women are respected in every single way for the job that they do. You do a life-threatening job, and you save lives. You're at the pinnacle of what I think government is all about, and we need to respect that and appreciate it. We need to celebrate it like we are today, yet at the same time, we need to figure out ways to make those decisions to give you what you need to protect your lives and to protect the lives of the people that you do 24/7. Every day of the week. So thank you so much for your service. You've done us proud and you continue to do so. I hope we do the same for you. Thank you.
Councilmember Labange.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Chief, council members, and all the members of Los Angeles City Fire Department. It was being a native, and as Greg spoke earlier about the 71 fires, I remember as a kid the Beechwood fire, looking from Silver Lake and all the hills burning, and all these years the Topanga fires, and now there was this, the worst fire ever in the history of the state. And we were fortunate in the extent that this city, due to the conditions, didn't have the tragedies that Ventura County, San Bernardino, Riverside, or San Diego, and tragically San Diego. And I do want to make a statement that I'm so proud of this city and this city and this mayor and past mayors, not all to the same level, but the strong level that we've committed to the Los Angeles Fire Department, the Los Angeles City Fire Department, Chief Amatri, I like to call it, Los Angeles City Fire Department, to have the resources. I was shocked at the story in the LA Times where they talked about San Diego. And when you mentioned they only had 3 engines and 3 trucks left, and all that was out, and no air support. I'd ask you, Councilman Zine, if you could move out of the way and get the guys from Air Support up here, because these are very special people, the flyers. And I know your county, Vance Kovic. I don't know if you know Vance. He's a county firefighter. There was a fire once in Griffith Park where he landed on a rock about that big with just one of the skids to let 18 crew members out to help fight a blaze there. These very talented individuals, along with all the firefighters, are very special. So I always stand, as everyone in the city stands, for firefighters. For what they do, they answer the call. Last night I was at 35 talking about the incident in Griffith Park with the live steamers where they went to help people. Whatever the call is, you are there. The life loss this time is not the most, in the most recent time, the greatest life loss of 22 persons in this tragedy. But in 1933, on October 3rd, there was a small fire in the morning in Griffith Park that became a raging bush fire where 33 workers in the WPA times lost in a canyon in the old zoo area, which is the worst life loss of any time in our history, of this history of the country, in a brush fire where 33 people lost their life. So the history that you have of always being there is so special. But the combination, and then what also I'm proud about the fire service, and there was a story yesterday in the Times about Brea and the Mayor Perry, I believe, if that's correct, the new head of the Southern California Association of Governments, was bragging about their fire department and the foam that they are starting to use. And when you see all the different regions, Eric Garcetti, where's Eric Garcetti? Eric Garcetti likes to say that we're seamless in our district boundaries. The fire service is seamless. I was proud that my guys from 56s were in San Bernardino, 35s was out in Riverside. Everybody's helping everybody else, because that's what the people of California want, except the people of Los Angeles have always held it a little bit higher for the resources, and we hope everybody in the state gets that. And I have a verbal motion that I want to put on the floor right now, if I get a second. I'd like to call upon the fire department and the city, let's call upon the city that on this Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving weekend, from Thursday through Sunday, that we salute the firefighters of this city and the state for their service at all times. I got a second on that?
Mr. Labange, our city attorney said we can't do that
Can't
today,
do a verbal
but
motion?
we will work
Now wait,
with
get
you.
Ron Deaton right here. He said I could do a verbal motion. I checked it out before. I'll come with a written motion. But I truly believe that Thanksgiving is a great time for families, and we should be greatly thankful for the work of all firefighters, and I think it's a great opportunity in a weekend for that. And I will get my second. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Labange, we will second that at the appropriate time, and I want to let the world know that if you weren't a city council member, you'd be an LA City firefighter. There's no question about that.
I sure would be. And you'd still be in the police department, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine, and I know the rest of my colleagues join us in thanking the fire department for their courage and commitment every day of the year.
And I invite my colleagues forward if we want to do a quick photo with the firefighters here, and we do this presentation. Tom Labange, Greg Smith, if you want to come forward. Antonio, if we can do a real quick photo, Madam Chair.
Great, we'll hold for 1 second. Our next presentation is going to be by Jack Weiss, so we'll be ready in the queue for Jack to be next. Now we're pleased to have Councilmember Jack Weiss for a presentation.
My friend Heidi Monkarch, Alex Padilla. Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, it's been a morning with many presentations, but I would appreciate your attention to this very special group of people behind me. And I want to start by saying that tomorrow, my friend Alex Padilla and I are going to be going to Israel. And we're very excited at the opportunity to do that for a whole bunch of reasons. So it was somewhat coincidental, but maybe it was somewhat fated that today we would have with us this group of teenagers and one mother from Israel who are here today along with their sponsor, my good friend Heidi Freeman Monkarch, and the group that is sponsoring them, Stand With Us, a group that is doing so much to educate Americans about the true facts of what's going on in the Middle East. Let me tell you a little bit about the teenagers behind me today. They were just like any other teenager not so long ago out one evening at a discotheque in Tel Aviv. And that night when they were out at this discotheque, a terrorist blew up an incredibly large bomb, killing many people and severely injuring the people who are behind me. Behind me is a mother of one of the kids who lost their lives that day. And I'll just introduce the folks here to you briefly. They are Russian immigrants to Israel, and I have their first names: Victoria, Larissa, Rita, Tanya, Oksana, Karina, and Lilia, the mother of one of the victims. They're here in America to enjoy themselves. They're here in America to get exposure to the United States, to get exposure to Los Angeles, and have a fun trip. But they're also here because it is so important that we put a face for everybody in this country on the victims of terror. And so I would ask all of you, because colleagues, I know so many people in this room one day are going to go on to national service. So many people who are sitting around this table and people who are standing around here one day are going to go on to make decisions for this nation in the international arena. I have no doubt about it. I want you all to look at the faces behind me this morning and really remember them. Because I think what you'll see when you look in those faces of these children is you're going to see your own children. You're going to see my children. You're going to see American children. I want you to remember their faces long after this day has passed when you go on to make decisions for our country that will affect the lives not only of them, but of future generations of children in Israel. I'd like to hear now from our Council President, Alex Padilla.
Thank you, Councilmember Weiss, and I do appreciate you inviting me to be part of this special presentation. And I am very much looking forward to our trip, and we leave tomorrow. And I think this presentation was not only timely but important for a couple of reasons. First of all, what's happening in Los Angeles, what's happening in the United States, and what happens in Israel, and how much we know about each other, yet how much more we need to learn from one another. And I think that dynamic is prioritized from the top levels of our country in our diplomatic exchanges, embassies in both countries, ambassadors in both countries, all the way down to the Los Angeles-Tel Aviv partnership, where at least as the city of Los Angeles, we know how important it is to connect with Tel Aviv and Israel as a whole, people who have left family roots there to come and to live in the United States, and vice versa, what we stand to get to know of one another and to learn from one another economically, culturally, academically, in so many ways. But I think even if you set aside the fact that we're specifically Angelenos and specifically Americans and specifically Israelis, we have much to learn from one another as it relates to hate, as it relates to discrimination, as it relates to violence and terror. This city and this country, I think only recently has begun to understand what it's like to live with the realities of terror, unlike the rest of the world. The rest of the world has been living this for far too long. And so as we as Angelenos, we as Americans are beginning to understand that, beginning to appreciate that, beginning to incorporate those real changes in our day-to-day life, I think that's one element of what we can gain from people who live with it on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't just affect military personnel. It doesn't just affect national leaders on both ends. It affects everyday people, young and old. And I think, if nothing else, for that reason, it was important to not only receive and welcome, but to recognize the young people standing with us today for what they have lived through, the lessons they can share with us, and what they represent as visitors here to the city of Los Angeles. So, Councilmember Weiss, thank you very much, and I think at this time we want to hear from some of the visitors.
I'm going to let Heidi Freeman-Marnkarsh decide whether Heidi wants to speak or whether there's anyone here who wants to say a few words.
Hi, I'd like to first thank Councilman Jack Weiss and all of City Council for inviting us, not only here today, but welcoming all of these people to Los Angeles for an incredible break from their day-to-day life. And I would like to just tell you that Stand With Us is an incredible organization that is trying to give out factual information to our community and to college campuses about what is going on today in Israel in a clear, factual way that is unbiased and helpful for people to understand exactly what the situation is there. And as well as welcoming these people to give them a wonderful time in LA, we also want all of you to understand that although we mourn many, many lives that are lost in terrorist attacks, there are tens of thousands of people that will live with the horrors forever for the rest of their lives. They have injuries ranging from physical hearing problems, they have metal embedded in their bodies, they have scars, they have loss of limb, loss of sight, all kinds of injuries in addition to the emotional disabilities that they have and the horrors that they will live with, their families and their friends will live with forever. They are so overwhelmed this morning. I don't know if any of them feel comfortable speaking with you, but they are really grateful to be here and really grateful to be welcomed into the city of Los Angeles. And I thank you all. Anybody need to say anything? Is that okay?
Where are they going next?
Thank you, Mr. Weiss and Mr. Padilla, for the presentation, and to the students who came to visit us today. And have a safe trip. Alex and Jack will be thinking of you as well. Our next presentation is by Councilmember Garcetti and Councilmember Ludlow.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It is with great joy today, colleagues, that I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Mose Benani Chitindero, who is not only a member of Parliament, but also the Speaker of the Namibian Parliament, and it is a great honor to be able to welcome here to the city of Los Angeles. I know we have one former speaker here, Mr. Villaraigosa, and we have a number of folks here who are active not only in local politics, but international politics, as we just learned. And certainly we have those who love promoting the friendship between our country and others, like Mr. Labange and so many of us. I've had the good fortune of spending some time in Namibia, which is, to me, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, the most beautiful country that I've been to in the world. It is in, for those of you who have not been, Southwest Africa, just above South Africa. and struggled. It's the second newest country in Africa in terms of its independence, but has a very rich history, of course, that predates colonialism, and then through German and South African colonialism also gives testament to the spirit, the human spirit, and the bravery of so many individuals who hungered for freedom and independence, not least of whom Dr. Chitendero was one of the leaders. Let me run through a few things, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Ludlow. We have the good fortune of having Dr. Chitendero here today because of David Roth, who wears many hats, but one of them was, as an Angelino, headed off to Namibia to help Namibia with its educational system. He's somebody who serves here on our state student aid board, is, I believe, the incoming president of that board, and also serves here in Occidental College in CD14, and does so much more here. We confirmed yesterday Mrs. Carol Hawkes, and she was somebody who took part in the youth convention during the Democratic Convention that was in many ways David Roth's brainchild. So we thank David and Anita and Jesus Maldonado, who are here as well. Mose Panani Chitendero has been Speaker of the Assembly since 1990. He is a lifelong activist with extensive experience not only in international politics but in education as well, in government restructuring initiatives, and has considerable diplomatic skills, providing leadership in a very diverse country and diverse settings. From 1989 to 1990, he was a member of the Constituent Assembly chairing Public Services Restructuring Committee, and made a real impact there. And a longtime member of the SWAPO party, was somebody who joined his countrymen and countrywomen in the struggle for independence, as I mentioned before. Before he joined the Assembly, he worked for the United Nations Vocational and Technical Training Center in Angola, giving real leadership to the area, and he's affiliated with many of the regional associations in Southern Africa, such as SADC and other entities where he provides leadership for other legislative bodies and speakers throughout. But he also is a friend of America, who was here in 1976, 1977 as a research fellow at the University of Massachusetts Center for International Education in Amherst, Massachusetts. He really exemplifies what a modern leader is today, not just in Africa, but in the world. Somebody who has not only fought for his country's independence, but who has fought for the rights of all the citizens of Namibia, and who's contributed to the region around and to the world around him. So it is with great joy that we welcome him here today. We'll be hearing from him shortly, but with that, I'd like to turn it over to Councilmember Ludlow to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcetti, and I'll be very brief as we're anxious to hear from the Speaker. Only 2 points that I'd like to add to the presentation that Councilmember Garcetti just mentioned is that, members, we deal with budgetary issues every day. We deal with the struggles of running government every day. But Dr. Chitendero could really teach us a thing or two about struggle. 27 years in voluntary exile, fighting to secure his country's independence. This speaker has been the speaker of his country since his country received its independence in 1990. And so we are so honored to have you and your lovely wife Sandra here today. It is a real honor for all of us to welcome you here, not only as you're going around the country visiting other governments and other national leaders, but to have you here in what we believe is the greatest city in the country of the United States of America. And so without further ado, Speaker Chitendero, welcome.
Why don't you go ahead and give your speech first, and then we'll take a picture after. Oh, okay. I'll hold it for you.
Honorable Councillors, Madam President, it is indeed for me a great honor to be here this morning in this great chamber of a great state and a great city, Los Angeles. I am deeply humbled by this experience because this city represents, it has a population 8 times the population of my country. And when you manage this city as men and women of wisdom and vision, I admire all of you. I think to me it's a learning experience to be here. The globe has become one in this globalized world. It's a global village, and I think this connection, particularly to you honorable council members of this great city, gives me the greatest hope, gives me the greatest courage to move on forward. You represent a very, very unique and rich state, the state of California. I come from Africa, Southern Africa, the last colony of in Africa, Namibia. The contrast is there. I think the common denominator we have is humanity, its experience. In as much as I have said, my country is only 1.8 million, the complexity of the problems, the needs are exactly the same. They only differ to a degree of density. That's the only difference. But there is no less problem in terms of solving the human problems and human needs when it comes to housing, when it comes to providing education, public transportation, health, and what have you. Those are common denominators to all of us. And I think I'm here to learn a great deal. Let me just say something about this state and what it has given me and the people of Namibia. My wife, Sandra, is from this great state, born in Sacramento, grew up here in Los Angeles. And sometimes when we talk about world affairs, she says, yes, I have become a Namibian citizen now that I live in Namibia. I have lived in Africa for over 20-odd years. But there is only one thing that cannot part from me, and that is there is the state of California in my cells, in my vision, in my spirit. So that's the only thing with which I'm inseparable with. So she always remains a Californian in as much as she may have a number of other citizenships that have been accorded to her. So you have, this city has given Namibia that contribution and humanity that contribution, and I think therefore we are tied. We continue to be connected. So Honorable Madam President, councillors, please visit Namibia, visit Africa. We are an open society. We are governed by rule of law. We believe that there's nobody who is above law because we ourselves were victims. And I think it is the justice that has brought up our dignity, human dignity, and our visibility. And I think this is why we have so much commitment to rule of law and respect of human rights, and our belief in the indivisibility of humanity. So may this dialogue continue and may it lead to a greater peace in this globalized world. Thank you very much for receiving me.
Thank you so much for being here, and pleased to have you in our chambers. Thank you, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and to echo Dr. Chitandura's plea, go to Namibia, folks. It's the tallest desert in the world is there in the Namib Desert. Some of the most incredible diamonds come from there, the most incredible wildlife, but even more than the natural infrastructure is the human infrastructure that's there. It's one of the richest in the world in terms of the human spirit and culture. So we hope to see some of you in Namibia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Labange would like to make a few comments as well.
Doctor, when you return to Namibia, I want you to take this book with you on Hollywood, then and now. And I want you to do that. We share Hollywood, Eric and I, and Martin is just a little low. I got two books, one for you and your study, but one for your central library. So the people of your country could learn about our place. I know they may have heard about Hollywood, but certainly know that it's a place of always changing, and to educate each other's people. I thank you for coming all the way, and I know Mr. Garcetti spoke of you having to be on the bench waiting, but I'm sure you learned a lot about what we do here in these presentations and the citizen participation with all the people involved. But I welcome you to the great city of Los Angeles, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Our next presentation is by President and Councilmember Alex Padilla.
do it in the back. It's a better backdrop. You can actually. Okay. There's a nice backdrop of the city, so just through this way. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have just one introduction to a group of women that I think most of the council members, if they're not familiar to already, they will be by the end of the day, because they are making the rounds at City Hall this morning, and I'll be joined momentarily by Councilmember Ludlow and Councilmember Perry, if you'd like to join us as well. Members, colleagues, please welcome the delegation from the Los Angeles African American Women Political Action Committee to Los Angeles City Hall. Let's give them a round of applause. As many of you know, they are making the rounds today, meeting with individual council members to restore the direct lines of communication, the ties, and the relationships they have had with elected officials in this building in the past. Founded in 1991, the Political Action Committee addresses issues of social justice, economic empowerment, gender equity, access to equal education, and access to the political process. So that's why they're here, knocking on our doors to be part of decision-making in the building, to have access to both elected official opportunities as well as appointment opportunities. If they haven't visited you in your office already prior to council, please expect them this afternoon. I want to just welcome them formally, introduce them to you publicly, and ask Council Members Ludlow, Councilmember Perry to say a few words before we hear from President Celestine Palmer. Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Council President Padilla. It's a real honor for me also to welcome you here on this day of meeting council members, and just wanted to acknowledge two things that I just learned, even though I've been so familiar with your work for over a decade, but I just learned that they have created two exciting programs. One, the Los Angeles African American Women's Political Hall of Fame, which highlights accomplishments by women in politics, and the Hall of Fame will be on display at the Los Angeles City College. And also the Los Angeles African American Women's Public Policy Institute, PPI, established to reach women who aspire to work in politics, which is a nonpartisan, nonprofit foundation, and has a 6-month training and education program targeting women who desire to get into the work of politics. It is so exciting to have you here. It's a real honor, and before we present this, going to step aside and let potentially a member of the Los Angeles African Women Political Hall of Fame, Councilmember Jan Perry.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, and my colleague, Mr. Ludlow. I also want to recognize the great contributions and the importance of this group, not only to the community in general, but to women, and the fact that they have been very involved and engaged advocates and keenly interested and aware on women's issues and supportive of women in politics. And I know that I've been able to come and speak to the group on a number of occasions, and not only have I appreciated that opportunity to speak, but the opportunity to engage in discussion so that we can have real, relevant-based discussions on how the things that we do here in City Hall and how they affect people in the community. So I have been and will continue to be supportive of their work, and want to say thank you so much, and what a wonderful activity you have engaged in today to bring your membership here to City Hall so that we can continue that discourse. So thank you, and thank you to Celestine and your tremendous leadership.
And now at this point, joined by my two colleagues, we'd like to present the certificate and bring to the podium the President of LawPAC, Celestine Palmer.
I would just like to say thank you to President Padilla and also my other colleagues on the City Council. It's truly been a wonderful and enlightening experience for us this morning. one of the things I'd like for you to notice that behind me are over 20, well, there were over 20 members of my organization here this morning and visiting the offices. One, we live in all of the council districts in the city of Los Angeles, and we want you to know that we are, for you, a liaison to this community and to your districts. And we want to also to say to you that we want you to engage us, and we will be, from time to time, engaging you and asking you to come to our communities and speak on the important issues that you find important for your districts. And this morning, I think we learned many issues that we feel that are dear to our heart that are also dear to you. So thank you very much, and thank you, Councilman Padilla and my other colleagues.
Thank you very much, and we have a couple of speakers as well, so before you all leave, and I just want to add, I had the opportunity to speak to all of you this morning and enjoyed it tremendously, and look forward to more partnerships with your organization. Our next speaker is Councilmember Tony Cardenas.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to be brief and thank you, ladies, for coming to my office today and helping me understand what your organization does. And I just wanted to say, I grew up understanding that black is beautiful, and today I'm reminded, yes, it is very much. And when you're organized, you're powerful, and you're beautiful, and you're giving. I want to thank you so much for what you're doing, and want to tell you that you have my full support in all the operations that you're doing, not only for black women, but for the entire community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jan Perry and I thank you for that compliment. Just a minute.
Our next speaker is Councilmember Garcetti.
Thank you. How do you top that? I agree 100%. I also wanted to thank you for coming down, Celestine. It was great to see you. And I wanted to thank you all for your support, because I wouldn't be here were it not for your support. You made it possible for me to actually be here, and that means a lot to me. And I really want to follow on a couple things that we talked about in my office. One, I would love to work with you. I know you have many members that are small business owners in figuring out how to get into the city contracting system. We've been doing a series of seminars throughout the city. I know a number of council members have been, but in my capacity as chair of the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee, I'd love to do something with you on those lines. I also wanted to make sure that you knew that I had volunteered already for the Public Policy Institute, so just call, just holler, I'll come by, and I would love to be a part of it. I think it's fabulous that you're doing that. So thanks again for coming down. We look forward to seeing you before next year, but also next year as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Councilmember Parks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to also welcome you to the City Council, and hopefully it will not be your last. You came in and said your first annual, and so I gave you enough projects today that will last you for a while, but I appreciate you coming and asking, and we certainly want to be supportive, but Joy took copious notes of all the things that are going on in the 8th District that we need your help on, and so we're looking forward to that partnership, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Now, Councilmember Zine.
Good morning. I was supposed to meet with you this morning, but I think Councilmember Parks held you up too long, giving him the list of items. But I do hope to meet with you, because I know we had a scheduled meeting this morning, and I waited anxiously. But here I see you. But I'm more than happy to meet with you and discuss some of the issues and concerns and help you with that agenda. So welcome to City Hall. And any friend of Jan Perry's, Martin Ludlow, Alex Padilla is a friend of mine, so I'm there with you. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. And thank you all for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I know they're taking a picture, and our next presentation will be Councilmember Ludlow when he's finished with his presentation.
I think that's Councilmember Padilla.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I have one more presentation this morning that's a very special presentation as well. You all over the course of the last year, I think back in March it was, you saw me stand here and recognize the American Diabetes Association and a couple of civic friends for their work in putting the annual political roast together, an event that raises hundreds of thousands of dollars for research, treatment, and outreach for the Diabetes Association. Let me call my friends forward. And just a couple of months ago, you saw me stand here with a group of elementary school children talking about the importance of proper nutrition, proper physical activity, the toll that the lack of proper nutrition and physical activity is taking on our society in general, but especially amongst young people. Well, one of the specific ways that we're measuring that is the alarming rate of diabetes in our society. Well, it's my role here today to recognize the month of November as Diabetes Awareness Month. And specifically on the 14th of November, while I'm away, it's going to be World Diabetes Day. So here to help me convey the important message about the American Diabetes Association, representing over 1 million volunteers and the 17 million Americans who suffer from diabetes, are some very special guests. We have Linda Gledhill, the Executive Director of the Los Angeles chapter of the American Diabetes Association. I think I saw a board member or two back here. But our most special guest is a constituent of Councilmember Ludlow's district, Emma Clayton, who is the American Diabetes Association's National Youth Advocate. Our National Youth Advocate here to say a few words, and a Los Angeles resident. We'll turn to her in just a minute, but to help me declare November 14th as World Diabetes Day and its activity here in the city of Los Angeles, I thank Councilmember Martin Ludlow for joining me in this presentation. Councilmember Ludlow.
The only thing that I'll add is I had a really humorous moment with Emma. I thought I was going to really impress her by bringing her up to the horseshoe. She sat down and she said, "Oh yeah, this is just like Congresswoman Watson's office in Washington, D.C." And so she has made her mark on a national level, and it is a real honor to have her here today. And so without further ado, Emma.
Well, we're going to give this certificate, this resolution, to Emma for World Diabetes Day, but Emma, we have one prepared especially for you. We can only hope to compete. I know you've met with members of Congress and U.S. senators. I've seen the pictures. And you had an event recently with Governor Gray Davis, and I want you to tell us about that. But please share with my colleagues and everybody watching on television what Diabetes Day is all about. Emma Clayton, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Councilman Padilla, and I'm so happy to be here today to talk about diabetes. As you know, my name is Emma Clayton, and I am the 2003-2004 National Youth Advocate for the American Diabetes Association. I live in Los Angeles, and I attend 7th grade in a magnet school in my district. What I've been doing is taking visits to Capitol Hill, which I've done last week. My Congresswoman, Diane Watson, invited me to speak at a tri-caucus where I spoke to Asians, African Americans, and Hispanics about how they can improve their lifestyle with diabetes. And a few weeks ago, I went to Sacramento to see a historical bill being signed by Gray Davis. It was an amazing experience, and I was proud to speak at that event. I never knew a bully before I got diabetes, but when I was 7 years old, that bully picked on me out of hundreds of kids. That bully, called type 1 diabetes, picked me out of a crowd of hundreds of kids. But diabetes is a neighborhood bully. Why? Because it affects so many people in the city of Los Angeles. Many of them don't even know they have diabetes. And when symptoms like excessive thirst and hunger come on, we need to make sure they have a place to keep healthy. I am one of the lucky ones who has a hospital nearby and has someone who can teach me everything about diabetes. But I know for a fact that a lot of people don't have insurance, good doctors, or a hospital. I know that the cure is definitely sometime soon. I think about when this bully will stop picking on me. And I look forward to that day when I can go out, hang out with friends, and walk around without having that bully following me every step I go. When that day comes with your help, we will no longer have to proclaim it National Diabetes Month. It will be called another type of month. Thank God we no longer have diabetes. And when that cure comes, beautiful girls like Liza won't have to have diabetes anymore. Every kid in America that gets the cure won't have to suffer with diabetes. And I'm so glad that I could be here today, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And before we take the official photos, Councilmember Cardenas would like to say a few words.
Okay, we also want to hear briefly from Linda Gledhill after the council members.
Thank you.
I'll make my comments brief. This disease has affected my life tremendously. I don't personally have diabetes, and I'm hoping and praying that I never do. But it is hereditary to a certain degree. My father was diagnosed with diabetes in his 60s, and only God knows how long he had diabetes before he was diagnosed. About 7 years later, he passed on. But during those 7 years, he changed his diet, he changed many habits about his life, and actually the entire family did as well. But it was the most important timeline of what happened to my father was 10 days before my wife Norma and I had our firstborn, Christian, my father passed away. But it always comes into my mind, had he been diagnosed earlier, had he known more about it, would he have been able to meet my son? So to me, young lady, you hit the nail right on the head. It's about education. It's about us giving to other people. It's about us just doing the right thing. And we can, and we'll find a cure. And the thing is, no longer will the day be the young men and women are going to have to deal with this disease. Entire families won't have to deal with this disease. And that's what this is about. Every time we deal with a disease, whatever it is, it affects a family, it affects a community, and the residual effects are not good. So I just wanted to say thank you for your leadership, young lady, and I hope and pray that you are successful, that in our lifetime, certainly in your lifetime, you see your dream come true, because sometimes dreams are stolen away because we don't do enough. So thank you for your leadership and your courage, and I just praise you for what you just said a few minutes ago. For someone at your age to get it, to understand it, believe me, you are a role model for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have one more speaker for Mr. Zine, but I think this young lady has a future in the City Council, so you all look out. So, Councilmember Zine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to acknowledge Alex Padilla for his support for the efforts to eradicate diabetes. There was an event in the Valley where I was the, shall we say, on the throne being ridiculed. And it was a great fundraiser, or roasted, that's what you want to call it. And we raised over $80,000. And I want to thank Alex for his participation. I know there's a man over there in the aisle, Arnie Burkhoff, who's very, very involved in helping make the difference and making the change. I just wanted to acknowledge the commitment that Alex has, the commitment that Arnie has to eradicate diabetes and to help people in our society. Thank you both. And thank you, young lady, for your words of encouragement. And you do have a career, if you want, in politics or broadcasting, but you have a very solid message that's well received. Thank you.
I just want to thank Councilman Padilla, Councilman Zine, and many of you for your support of the American Diabetes Association, calling special attention to this entire month. Not that diabetes is only 1 month a year, it's 12 months a year, 24 hours a day. And Emma is the best spokesperson I think we've ever had. I don't need to add to her remarks. I just want to thank you, and on behalf of my colleagues behind me who don't want this job anymore, help us work to eradicate this devastating disease from the face of the earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we're on to the next order of business.
Item number 20 was called special by Councilmember Reyes.
Business?
Thank you, Madam President. Item 20, just briefly, it's an effort in which we're putting together a business investment district that's property-based, not tenant-based, and it's an ongoing effort for that corridor to clean up and put together the necessary infrastructure. In that pocket, in my district, we've reached over 25,000 people per square mile in Lincoln Heights. It's a starting realization for many, but these are the kinds of efforts that have to be put together by both the private and public sector to make our areas cleaner, more inviting, and hopefully continue to generate that quality of life that we all deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. I think we'll move on that item. If we could, call the roll. Tabulate the votes.
14 ayes.
Thank you. Next item of business.
Item number 51 was called special by Councilmember Miskowski.
Yes, Ms. Miskowski.
I would like a presentation first before I speak on this.
Great, thank you. Who's going to, yes. Mr. Carey.
City Clerk, and perhaps the chair.
They were shy today.
Essentially, this is a charter change in order to match the state law that was changed last year that allowed for tidelands to be used for recreation, cultural, and economic development type expenditures. The charter had been in tune with the prior state law, and this would, after state law has been broadened, this would be a charter amendment to allow the charter to, right now the charter is more restricted than state law. This would bring the charter in line with the with state law. And the instruction is to provide for the city attorney to develop the language, and it would come back just for the next several items, not all of them, but on the election items that are internally being generated, the November 12th, excuse me. Yes, November.
Yeah,
November.
the first action you take on a ballot measure is to instruct the city attorney to draft the necessary materials. That action has to be taken for this measure and the special police tax by November 12th. Then you will have a second action where you actually adopt the resolutions and the special election ordinance to place this on the March 04 election, and that action has to be taken by November 26th.
Also, as we explained in committee yesterday, for all these items, because of the nature of the election, it's a county election, due to the cost involved for the city clerk and also for the county registrar, the cost is about $2.8 million for the initial issue and $400,000 for each additional issue. So, for example, if you did have two issues, that would be $3.2 million out of the general fund, perhaps. In this particular instance, the committee asked the city clerk, myself, and the city attorney, working with the city attorney, to discuss and see if it was if the port would be willing and it was illegal, given Tidelands laws, for the Harbor Department to spend money to put this on the ballot. So it would not come out of the general fund. As you're aware, as I've expressed over the last several months, the general fund is in a bad situation, to say the least.
Thank you. Ms. Miskowski.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, we took an action 13 days ago. We took that action 13 days ago when we got our first financial status report. And we learned that we were in very, very serious condition. When we adopted that report, a policy. It said adopt a new city budget policy where one-time sources of revenue can only be used to fund one-time expenditures. We also adopt a policy to say that there shall be no new expenditures without an identification of funds. We've just been told that this would be a new expenditure of from $2.8 to $3.2 million. We have the two items following this on the agenda, which are also talking about considering calling an election in March of '04. There are those of us who have been following the mantra around here about serious budget, no expenditure, so much so that people have said to me, you know, Cindy, this lap dancing issue qualified. It's item 53. We hope you won't precipitate calling an election in March of '04 because we can't afford it. We have to explain to our citizens that although the ordinance was good, we may not be able to call that election because we can't afford $2.8 or $3.2 million this year, this time, now. We didn't budget it. That concerned me. I talked to my community about it, but I said we can't afford it. We have to do what's right for the city budget, not spend it on things that we can't identify money for. So people have said, work it out, come up with a compromise. We may or may not do that. But I was shocked when I heard those conversations. I took it to heart. I know the budget situation. I believe this council when it says we can't expend. We've got to start cutting. There is discussion here, and it's interesting. Mr. Deaton said, we will only do it if it's legal. It's not what our report says. Our report, in item number 4, says instruct the CLA, the city attorney, and the city clerk to work with the Harbor Department to identify funds. It doesn't say whether they're legal or not, to identify the funds. Our harbor in the past has identified funds. Our harbor in the past spent more than $60 million to do things in this city that the Harbor Department said yes, the previous administration said yes, the previous administration went to the harbor and said, do this, it's good for the city, it'll help us. What happened about that $60 million? The state sued us. We lost that case. We owe the state back $60 million in a settlement that was done in 2001. We're still paying. We're going to be paying for a number of years that $60 million because our mayor, then a different mayor than the one we have today, and this council and the Harbor Department said, sure, we'll pay money. The state sued us, said you don't have that authority, it's state tidelands money. They sued us, they won. We're paying every year $3 to $4 million to pay back that $60 million. So this is really critical about identifying funds. Is it legal? This doesn't say we have to identify if it's legal. At the very least, I'm going to add an instruction, a motion, that this report, if it go forward and is adopted, that we say, we get the city attorney here to tell us in light of that case, is it legal for the Harbor Department to pay any money for what is in essence asking the Harbor Department to spend money more broadly than they are now allowed to spend money. That's a very, very serious issue. As I said, in addition to that, we have this item, which is huge cost, and I realize my time is over, so I want to hear from others before I speak again. But members, we've got to consider each of these items. It's not just one item, it's 3 items in a row. For some, we're saying we can't spend the money. For others, we are. I'm not so sure we can parse it like that. $3.2 million is $3.2 million that we don't have today. We could call an election in November of '04, and we could budget it. We don't do our budget until spring of '03. We could budget an election. We didn't budget this one. Mr. Parks will tell you what we did yesterday in committee. Budget and Finance Committee started to hear what does it really mean to do the cutbacks we're now doing. Animal Services can't go out to pick up a stray animal unless it's vicious, because that's not an essential service. And we're just beginning. More will come, but this is not the time to be looking at spending money we don't have when we are talking about the serious nature of the cutbacks we have.
Thank you, Ms. Mizikowski. Our next speaker is Councilmember LaBonge.
Yeah, I move we continue this to next Wednesday. Second?
We're second on that item.
Because she's not here, Janice is not here. I'm just giving Janice a shout. I don't. Well, the councilwoman of the district is not here, and I certainly would want the councilman of the district here.
Oh, come on. You know how much money we're
Council members,
continued to next week because that is the final day to act to make the instruction. But I think since some of us are not going to be able to be here next week, we should have this discussion today. It won't be definitive, but it will inform those who are going to be here next week to know about the deliberation and discussion.
And I think the question would be the date that has to be acted on. I'm not sure if you mentioned that earlier,
The
Mr.
council
Carey.
has to take this action, which is to instruct the city attorney to draft the language. I realize they've already drafted the language, but this is a new election. You have to instruct the city attorney to draft that language by 11/12, which is next Wednesday.
1 week from today.
The reason we put all three measures on today was to have the discussion about whether we were going to proceed because the adult entertainment ordinance, that final action has to be done by 11/12/03 if you want the option to go on, if you want that measure to go on March of '04. That's an absolute deadline. You have to take a final action.
Right. The rules.
It's different because it's a referendum. It's controlled by the charter. I know this is confusing. Two of these measures, your first action is 11/12, your second action is 11/26. One of the measures, the adult entertainment measure, your final action has to be by 11/12 if, I repeat, if you want this to go on March '04. If you do not care about March '04 and you're going to repeal it or put it on March '05, then you've got until 11/21 to take those actions, because you only have three actions.
One additional nuance is that as I understand it, on the adult entertainment, is that, for example, on the police issue and on the harbor issue, you could take an action on the 12th and reject it on the 26th. You have to take an action by the 12th, and that'll be a final action
On the adult entertainment.
on the adult entertainment.
No,
Councilmember-
the final action on adult entertainment is actually November 24th, which
Which is a
dates back
Monday.
to November 21st, which is the Friday, which is the last day to finally act.
Mr. Carey is correct. Okay, Mr. LeBlanc, you still have time on your...
Motioned in and I got a second, and I think I was pretty good at Robert rules, because once there was a second, it should have stopped all discussion, but I'm a guy from Marshall High, and I believe in good discussion. So the point, I just want to ask for Mr. City Attorney there.
Mr. LeBlanc, they're saying to me at this point in time that there are speakers on the queue, that once those speakers are finished, then we vote on the motion that's before us, which would be your motion.
And that would be the first
continue.
motion that would be voted on.
It doesn't in discussion, it just says it would go there. Okay, I'll gladly sit down and listen to the discussion. Thank you. But I do think it's important, members, as it is to everybody discuss, that everybody have an opportunity who's in a district, who's not here, to be here to voice their concerns. And that's why, whether it's an issue in your district, Greg, or an issue in your district, Jack, I think it's important on a big issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Our next speaker is Councilmember Villaraigosa.
Yes, I thank Council Member Misakowski for once again standing up for fiscal prudence. Everybody, we've been talking about for weeks now the challenge that we face in this city with the fact that we don't have enough money to run city government. And notwithstanding all the rhetoric about the concerns on this council for that fiscal prudence, here we are considering putting on the ballot a measure that would cost us somewhere in the neighborhood between $2.3 million and $3.2 million. We honored our firefighters today, and we all got up and excited about the fact that they have stood up and put their lives on the line. $2.3 to $3 billion means we're going to have to do something possibly about cutting that fire department, about cutting that police department, about cutting sanitation. What are we doing here? What are we doing here, everyone? This isn't just a district matter. The idea that this is just something that affects the 15 councilmanic district couldn't be further from the truth. This affects the entire city, everyone. This is a very important issue. This isn't about the substance of the issue. On the substance of the issue, this affects the 15th and it affects the whole city. This is about the cost of putting this on the ballot. You know, all of us have voted, and the next matter was a unanimous decision, and we said that we don't support We want to put restrictions, rather, on lap dancing. That's fine. But the cost of that, to put that on the ballot next year, is astronomical. We've got to stand up for fiscal prudence. We've got to stand up for the employees of the city of Los Angeles. We've got to stand up for the idea that we want to protect services, and the best way to do that is to be prudent with the people's money. I would submit to you that to put these measures on the ballot with the cost tag and the price tag associated with them would be fiscally reckless on our part.
Thank you, Mr. Villaraigosa. Our next speaker is Councilmember Weiss.
I don't want to follow that. I don't want to follow that because he's right. And not only is he right, but, I mean, you ain't seen nothing yet, colleagues, because in a couple minutes after we go through these matters, some folks are going to come in here and ask the city to spend millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to continue to litigate a failing effort against the Bush Environmental Protection Agency to continue to try to fight efforts to clean up our sewage problem in Los Angeles. I mean, so the fiscal, this today could be subtitled Fiscal Mismanagement 101. And there's also a substantial process issue. Ms. Misikowski was exactly right when she started to talk about the process by which all of this has unfolded. I mean, it could be at the end of the day that we agree that this Tidelands measure is good public policy. Could very well be. In fact, my guess is we're going to be more often than not, we're going to agree that they're good public policy goals. We've already agreed as to what we think good public policy is with respect to adult businesses in this city. And we all agree we want more police. And we all agree, and I'm the first to agree, we want to have clean water. But we've got to go about this in the right way. We've got to go about it with a process that is open, that is fair, that is inclusive, and that errs on the side of being exhaustive rather than abbreviated at the last minute. That's what my concerns are globally about all these matters that are being put before us today.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Our next speaker is Councilmember Parks.
Madam Chair, I also rise, and I really appreciate the comments by Cindy and Antonio. I think you hit it right on the head. I think just to remind everybody, we had everybody at the front table just recently. It reminded us that we were somewhere between $186 to $236 million in the hole, that we were spending at a rate of $50 million above what was allocated, that we have some issues that deal with wastewater, some issues dealing with sewers that we had no way to project. We have a state government that may impose upon us even more deficit by dealing with the issues of the vehicle licenses. And as we go forward, the policy decisions that were made clearly established the impact on this year's budget as it relates to single-purpose money being used for multi-year projects. And so I think that certainly I supported the issue of lap dance ordinance, but I don't view it as being significant enough to spend almost over $3 million for a timely issue. I think that I would much rather, if we had $3 million, to put it into some of our issues that deal with our wastewater, things that we can see actually occur that impacts the environment. I would like to see us deal with the issues of gangs, where we're trying to find $1 million for at-risk and young people dealing with those issues. But I think that if we can, on a timely issue, looking at these three issues, move them to the early '05 elections, where it does not cost the city money, that we certainly can be far better off. We spent 2 hours yesterday in Budget and Finance, and they were not issues that were not important, and they're not the more serious departments. And we spent 2 hours just discussing how can we rein in the spending during this fiscal year. And so I would support that we not go forward in this proposal. Another thing, I think we have never done well in dealing with important issues without CLA reports, CAO reports. None of that has happened. We should not put ourselves in a position of November 12th putting our backs against the wall to make a very important decision prematurely. I don't know about everyone else's district, but I know in my travels, people are beginning to get their bills for the increased fees for trash, for sewers, and for people on fixed income. That's something that's meaningful to them. They bring it up constantly. And so I think it's important that we take that level of prudence, that we say, really evaluate where we are, that we spend the money that we have as opposed to adding a deeper hole in the budget that we'll have to find other cuts to balance out. And so I would recommend that we move this to all three of these items, or two of the items, to November, early '05, that we put on the back burner the lap dance, even though we know that is a tool that the police department can use, but it should not force us into a critical financial decision at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Our next speaker is Councilmember Alex Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate you running the meeting while I've been running around trying to take care of some business here. I just wanted to chime in, first of all, also to thank Councilmember Misikowski for her obvious emphasis on this concern, not about this agenda item specifically, but the greater context of what we're doing, and it's obviously generated some much needed and some very important discussion. I think, as she articulated, what we've had leading up to this discussion is maybe a perfect storm of mostly good ideas that are coming to a head here. The specific item before us right now, the Thailand's measure and charter amendment, is not something that the council is just now considering. This is something that we have looked at before, that we have deemed worthwhile doing before. But I will remind us that last year, because of cost concerns, we held back. We did not make the findings that it had an urgency that warranted, at that point, a $1.7 million cost to put it on a non-city election. This year, because it's not a community college district, it's a county election or county conducted election, that cost of putting it on the ballot is $2.8 million, whether it's this measure or any of the quote-unquote first measures on the ballot. So I just want to remind us of that history, the 1.7 to 2.8, and have this serve as the example that whether it's this measure or a potential police tax measure or something else, it's not that they're not good ideas. It's not because they may not merit consideration of becoming ballot measures. It's because there are costs involved. There is timing involved. And so, Mr. Labange, I know the council member of the 15th district isn't here with us today. I really hope that whatever happens, if it were to move forward, I know she'd be happy. If it were not to move forward, I hope she and the mayor, because he lives in San Pedro, don't take this personal. But we have obviously numerous considerations to take into account. I mentioned the potential police tax. I know it's not the agenda item before us, but it's part of the context of what we need to consider as we make these decisions. That was heard yesterday in the Rules Committee. I know, Mr. Parks, you mentioned that these two fine gentlemen were before your Budget Committee recently. Well, they were also in Rules Committee talking about that measure. There's not even a report on that. So even though that may be on the agenda today, we're not ready to take action one way or the other. We're still awaiting that further information. And then there is the issue, as Mr. Carey articulated, of the lap dance ordinance and the petitions that were gathered and a certain number qualified. That has been the reason for a different schedule, an accelerated schedule, if you will, for decision-making on that measure. But we have three of these to contend with as we try to make these considerations. One, or another one of the considerations that over the course of the next couple of weeks we're going to have to look at is, number one, schedule. We're not voting today to put something on the ballot or not, but next Wednesday is the deadline for some of these elements for us to request the language be drafted up. There's still another vote after that of whether or not to put something on the ballot. So unfortunately, there are some of us who are out next week. Councilmember Misikowski, Councilmember Weiss, myself, maybe some others. By next week, we're deciding what takes that next step in the process and what doesn't, but that's still not the end of the process. Next week, this council can vote to have the language be drafted, and we can still pull back after next week. Some of the considerations are economic. Some of the considerations are going to be what elements of any of these ballot measures have incorporated in them legal obligations or commitments to whether it's investing in infrastructure or meeting requirements of consent decree or on and on and on. I think economic gain, should any of these measures be approved, any sort of legal or city policy dictated timelines or schedules need to be considered. I don't think we're locked into any scenario of 04 versus 05, but those are some of the policy considerations that I think we as a body are going to have to consider. There's a cost-benefit, dollar figure, cost-benefit, legal compliance, cost-benefit picture that we should look at. That's not to say yes or no to any of these ballot measures. Again, I think Ms. Sikowski, Mr. Parks, Mr. Villaraigosa, and others make a very compelling argument as to what the next steps should probably be. But as the information, the reports continue to come out, I think that is the big picture that this council is going to have to contend with over the next couple of weeks. And I wanted to make sure to try to articulate that for the members of the public, either here or watching from home, because agenda items are listed independently. We may have independent discussions, but that is the broader context for our decision.
Mr. Padilla, now I was going to say, now I know what you have to do to tell us that your time is up. And next, and you're done. Okay. Our next speaker is Councilmember Cardenas.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have a question for the two gentlemen on the panel. Of these three items that we're going to be considering today, to possibly put them on the ballot and initiate an expense of approximately $3 million, do any of them have a cost benefit that would actually, should they pass, overcome that $3 million to an advantage to our city, to our constituents?
I'm going to let Deaton answer that.
Taking them one at a time, I think the port change will eventually create an economic, it could create an economic activity on the waterfront that could generate either TOT or sales tax. It would not be in the time frame that, I mean, it would be a delayed situation because the development would have to happen. Eventually, I believe that it would more than pay for itself over time. Granted that it would not resolve our problems this year or next year from a fiscal standpoint. The police tax would be officers in addition to what we have now. So our existing budgetary issues would remain, and this would be on, but this would be, it would not make it get any worse, but it would not make it any better either. And on the other is basically a non-economic. We would lose some.
It's pure regulatory, the other one.
It's regulatory. Sure. We would lose some activity, but I'm not sure how
Okay, now my next question is this. This is a decision that we as elected officials constantly have to make. What's the value of a life if we get closer to putting more police officers on the street on a given day, say a year earlier than we would otherwise? I don't think anybody can answer that quantitatively, but you certainly could say qualitatively that is an objective and a goal that the mayor, that every single council member around this horseshoe has said, we want this city to be safer. And if we can make this city safer sooner, $3 million is something we should definitely contemplate, but it is time, ladies and gentlemen, that we start explaining and debating these issues in the complexity that they are. It's unfortunate that we all too often are quoted in the papers, or it's cute or sexy for the press to quote what's going on around here as being black and white and real simple. The council decides or doesn't decide to spend $3 million. That's not all that's going on right here. We're talking about life and death issues. We're talking about a budget that is $5 billion, a crisis of $187 million, as our chairman of the budget committee just pointed out, possibly based on, depending on what Arnold decides to do in Sacramento, it could snowball into $200, $350, $400 million next year. These are the kinds of issues that we're faced and forced to deal with. This issue is not that simple. And I don't think that we should end the debate today, but I think we should begin the debate today of doing what Ms. Sikowski has been doing for years, is bringing the complexities of these issues to the forefront right here on the table, so that people, whether they want to accept it or not, is up to them. But the reality of it is, it's not as black and white as $3 million. It's not that simple. It's about making decisions to move this city forward, and sometimes the timeline isn't comfortable. Sometimes the focus is on $3 million. But ladies and gentlemen, the real focus is what is the value of people's safety in this city? What is the value of doing the honest and right thing to protect our environment in this city? Those are the kinds of issues that weigh on my mind. I just hope that this debate reaches the public so that they can start contemplating and understanding what we're going through here, because it's not black and white. I don't see it as a $3 million issue. I see it as $3 million being one component of the bigger picture, and we have to figure out what do we need to do to move the city forward, and is a year worth of $3 million perhaps to make people's lives safer. To me, that is at the core of this issue. And these arguments need to be much more complicated than just focusing on the one. Thank you.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was at Rules yesterday with you and Councilmember Grewal, and we discussed these issues. Councilmember Hahn testified to the issue of the tidelands, and I think that what she's interested in is having some language. I'm sure she wouldn't want to spend $3.2 million placing it on the ballot. We didn't discuss that issue. We did discuss possibly the Harbor Department picking up whatever they would be willing to pick up on that. So I think that while she's not here, understanding her testimony yesterday in committee was having the language prepared, but not moving forward with anything for the ballot, and not spending, and I'm in agreement with my colleagues, $3.2 million or $1.2 million or $1 million is way too much to spend when we have other pressing matters, whether it be this issue or the other two issues that are going to be discussed this afternoon. And I understand from her staff that her wishes are just that the language be drafted at this particular time and we not vote on the matter regarding the appropriations for it to be placed on the ballot. So I would offer that for consideration on the matter of the tidelands. Thank you.
Ms. Sikowski.
Again, members, on that one, this could be continued to next week, Wednesday, as Mr. Labange has asked, and the instructions could still be given next week, Wednesday, to create the instructions, the language, etc. The thing that I am concerned about, that at least if we're going to continue it, I would like the other instruction be that the city attorney come to report back to the city council on the legality of the harbor spending any money, because the harbor money that we would be looking to is saying the harbor should pay the preponderance of an election to ask the people to take away harbor money to spend for something else, I believe, contrary to the State Tidelands Trust, which is in fact the lawsuit that we lost, $60 million worth. Again, let me read the policy that we enacted 13 days ago. There's a new city council policy where any new program, position, or other expenditure approved by this council this fiscal year must also be accompanied by a pre-identified funding source. We can throw that out and say, it's more important to put this on, don't worry about it, but it's just that $3 million that we do have to worry about. And Mr. Cardenas, I absolutely believe you're right. We may want to spend an amount of money for a police measure. But the first thing that happened today is we were going to continue item 52, which is the police measure. Why are we going to continue it to next week, the last day we can act to instruct? Because we don't have a police measure. You asked Mr. Deaton, do we have a police measure, Mr. Deaton?
No, my report's not. As I report in committee, I have some of the issues, but not all the issues resolved. We need to discuss it with the police department and to finish off the proposal.
And that proposal, in a normal course, per a motion that this council brought in, we said explore, study, look at the issues, look at the options. What happens when we get a report? Usually comes to a committee. We get more vetting. We get people. We adopted, in the last 4 or 5 years, some great propositions, some great bonds. We adopted Prop F. We're building more fire stations and animal shelters. We adopted Prop Q, and we're building police stations. We adopted Proposition DD in 1999 that built 35 libraries. Each one of those, we knew what we were doing. We went to the voters. We vetted it. We had committee reports. We said, voters, you're going to get this for that. You're going to get these libraries, you're going to get these police stations, you're going to get these fire stations. Council's being asked on 52 to come back next week, no report here today, no discussion yet with the public, but last day to act, next week, Wednesday, to put something on the ballot. That's not the way we do business here. We do business by getting buy-in, by getting community support. We haven't even talked about early warning and our neighborhood notification system. We do deal with that when it's convenient. Members, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's timely. I do believe that the budget is bad. And I haven't, if it's important to put something on, we have November. In November, we do a budget, adopt it in June, where we can fund and budget and finance for a special election in November. We don't do it this way because something else has to be identified that we're not going to spend. Some further cuts have to be made by some department. We heard yesterday that some of the cuts may be layoffs. We need to identify what we're going to do, as we said we would, for making a new extraordinary expenditure.
Is there a second to Councilmember Miskowski's motion?
Mr. Weiss seconds. Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. How many more people on the queue, Mr. President?
You are the final speaker.
Okay, just final speaker. So when I asked to be continued, I think it was great that we had this discussion because I think it's real important, and also coming around and talking to all of you. If we were in our homes, and we came home tonight and we have these challenges that are facing us, we say, do we do what we need to do to our house this spring, or do we do it maybe after a while and try to get ourselves together? I think we do it after a while. What you spoke of, Cindy, and Tony spoke of, very important. I think, Mr. Deaton, we can be prepared for November in future months, correct?
Yes.
And we can do the process that Ms. Miskowski spoke about that was so successful for our library department, for our zoo, for our parks, and educating the public through community hearings and processes that, correct?
Yes.
And we can possibly get the measure for the harbor on the ballot that would do what we really should do, is develop the breakwater so that the people could get to the water and make it part of the community in the way that I know this council member who sits next to me wants. Is that correct?
I hadn't heard about the breakwater, but I think the waterfront would be a good
Waterfront,
change.
breakwater, okay, all right, very good. So that's real important. So that, now the other issue concerning the police, that's another issue too of a ballot member that's coming before us?
That's number 52.
52, but that's a ballot member. Same thing too, that could be in November, which makes sense, so we could build community support on it, correct?
Yes.
In November. But the last one, lap dancing, what would you recommend on that?
I really have no position on lap dancing.
No position on lap dancing. I have a position on lap dancing, that we should try to find a compromise and not have it on the ballot, but take real issues to the people, like the waterfront of San Pedro and like the police department, and try to resolve these other issues in some form and fashion. But that's just it. I just think I wanted to make those points that's real important. And I also want to articulate, Mr. Villaraigosa, what you said about the issues like the harbor, and I'll talk about Greg and the landfills, and I'll talk about the river and Ed. There are citywide issues, but I hope whenever we talk about the river, that Ed Reyes is here. Whenever we talk about downtown, that Jan Perry's here. Whenever we talk about issues related to landfills, that Greg Smith is here, so that we all could do it. And we talk about the harbor. That's a courtesy that I would like to just say I like to work on. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. So, colleagues, we have the item as agendized and a couple of amending motions before us.
Mr. President, there's a motion to continue this matter for 1 week to November 12th.
Okay, and that takes precedent. I have been reminded we do have one speaker card on this item before we take any votes.
You get me.
Public hearing was held in committee. Brendan Huffman, are you still here? You've heard us for the last hour.
Thank you. Brendan Huffman, Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. I came prepared to speak about the Tidelands Trust issue, but this fascinating discussion happened instead, and it's very satisfying to see. And I think Councilwoman Miskowski and others deserve a lot of credit for looking at the most important issue facing this city and other cities throughout the state is the budget, what we can afford and what we can't afford, and what to prioritize. I want to get back to the port issue very quickly because Councilwoman Miskowski also brought up another important issue. If the city misuses funds from the Port of LA, that exposes the city to litigation from the state. So I think we have to tread very carefully as the city attorney drafts this ordinance, that we are in full conversation, and full compliance with the State Lands Commission. Lastly, there's discussion of the Port of LA paying to put this item on the ballot. I'm not sure that's the best source of that money. This should probably come from the general fund. In any event, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the leadership and discussing budget issues and fiscal prudence, and I hope to work with you more on that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes public comment again for item 51. We have the motion to continue before us. Madam Clerk, please open the roll.
Open, but just want to make sure that the other motion, which said that the city attorney be instructed to report back on the legality of the action, be incorporated in that.
Yeah, I think that's accepted without objection, so we'll look forward to that information next week. The roll is still open. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, so this item is continued for 1 week with that report being requested by the council. Okay, thank you very much. Before proceeding to the next item, Councilmember Parks, I understand you have a special guest here in council chambers.
Yes. I have a special guest. It goes to show you can't come to work without being supervised, and my wife, Bobby Parks, is here visiting with us today.
Next item.
Item number 52 was called special by Councilmember Miskowski.
Ms. Miskowski.
I guess I could just stand up and say ditto. But just to reinforce that, this issue is something that council might think is important to do. I don't think we have enough information. As Mr. Deaton has told us, we don't even have a proposal. We had presumed that if we were going to have a proposal, it would be a maintenance of effort level. That is, general fund would continue to fund LAPD at a certain amount, and we would have more provided by way of a tax if the voters voted to it. There are questions about where and how they would be deployed. There are issues about what kind of ranks of officers would we utilize if we got additional funds. Those kinds of things have not been vetted, and I dare say, although this was requested to be continued again until next week, the last day we can make this instruction, I don't know of a committee report that's going to, or committee that's going to meet between now and next week Wednesday that is going to be able to digest that, look at it, have public input, get the buy-in that we got so successfully on the other bonds that I mentioned earlier. November may be the date. It may very well be that we will look at it and the money will make sense. But even on maintenance of effort level, council members, we had a discussion in Budget and Finance Committee a week or two ago that said, should we accept the COPS grant? And we said yes, as long as we maintain a certain level and can afford it. We asked 3 people at the front table. We asked the CLA, the CAO, and the police department, what is our maintenance of effort level? What number of officers do we have to maintain to accept a federal grant? We got 3 different answers. We were not sure what the maintenance of effort level is. We can't run willy-nilly, put something on the ballot, not know with certainty, not have with clarity, not have that kind of buy-in, that kind of vetting that our committee system and our public process, public hearing system allows us to have. So I dare say, although again, I'm not going to be able to be here next week Wednesday, that would be my concern. So that's why it's ditto.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I didn't speak on the earlier item just because I wanted to say some things on this one, and I appreciate very much the comments that were made by this entire council. I think they were cogent, to the point, and reflect a council that agrees on 2 things. 1, in this case, on public safety. 2, that agrees on fiscal prudence. And we have seen that go throughout this entire 2 years that I've been here, certainly in the few months that we've had a new council, and before that. We've seen crime fall throughout the 90s and continue. This is a safer city than it was. And 2, that we are the best rated large city in America by the bond companies. Don't take politicians' words for it, take Wall Street's word for it, that fiscal discipline which we have had from the CLA, the CAO, and ourselves and the mayor has resulted in continuing to be able to meet extremely difficult financial times at a time that many other municipalities and levels of government are not. Just look at the state to see. I think there's very little that separates the discussion that's happening here today. I and Mr. Padilla were the folks who authored a motion looking at, with Ms. Miskowski, the idea of putting something on the ballot, and I think and I really want to spend most of my time talking about that, not about the timing, because I think it's an idea that merits strong consideration at a time that we have momentum in hiring to continue that, at a time that across the board in communities, rich and poor, no matter what color, what language people speak, people are saying that they want public safety to be job one here, that we should look at ways to do it precisely because of the reasons that we're debating whether or not we should spend some money to put these on the ballot. It's precisely because we can't even afford to consider a $2 million initiative of any sort, whether it's LA Bridges 2, whether it's putting something on the ballot, whether it's looking at expanding our parks opportunities. It's precisely because that we have to look at structural solutions to these taxing problems. We have to look at structural solutions because we are hampered by the way the state funds our localities. The state steals half of what we have until they steal all of what we have. Whenever we come up with an initiative, whenever we come up with a new source of revenue. And if we can't find structural ways to pay for some of these big bills that are coming, and we can sit back and pretend the bills aren't coming, whether it's stormwater stuff, we can pretend the bills aren't coming, whether or not we all say we want to expand the police department, but then there's a bill for that. I think this is a great discussion that we are realizing that we have to actually take this to the voters, which is the best public process that exists. I found out yesterday that this was going to be on the agenda. That's my own fault. I should have read the agenda before that. But I found that out yesterday. As I've said publicly to the press, in being one of the people who wrote this, whether it goes in March or November or another time, that is an open discussion. I move that we continue this because I found out about it yesterday, and I'm glad that we had the discussion, but I would move that we do the same thing with this one. We have 2 weeks after something comes back, 2 weeks to discuss that. And it's probably unlikely that this would be on a March ballot. But let's not completely close the door on that. Let's look at whether or not, because I, just like you, found out that this was coming on the agenda yesterday, or maybe some of you knew a couple days before that. But we need to have that discussion, and we need to begin to look at what this is going to look like, both in the police department, looking at LA Bridges 2 programs like Mr. Parks has led on, which would be, I think, a great part of a public safety initiative to embed that, or other crime prevention measures to go alongside with police hiring. So that would be my motion today.
Is there a second?
Mr. Weiss seconds. Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to echo Cindy Misikowski's comments and concerns, and we had this discussion yesterday in the Personnel Committee, which is why it was being continued, because the answers to the questions we asked about the maintenance of effort, the number of officers, what it would mean for our individual taxpayers, timing issues, all of that. And I think there's a general agreement around this horseshoe that we would like to have more police officers. But as anything that we do in the City Council has to be at the right time, right place, and for the right cost, and that our taxpayers are asking us to look at those things, in particular in a tight budget time. So, Ms. Misikowski, we did have that dialogue yesterday in committee because we also agreed that it was very important to have the answer to those questions before anything was brought forward, and particularly the maintenance of effort. And I talked about the fact that in previous years we have, and rightly so, a somewhat skeptical electorate out there about some of the bonds, although recently we have done a much better job in the last several years on coming through with the promises made have been kept by building those fire stations and police stations and libraries. But maintenance of effort is a key question that I think needs to be answered here, as well as cost. So that is why we did not move it out of Personnel Committee. Mr. Zine and Mr. Padilla and I said we were not ready to have that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. And any other members wishing to be heard on this item? If not, Madam Clerk, we have an amending motion.
There is a motion to continue this matter for 1 week to November 12th.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, we'll see you again next Wednesday.
Okay.
Next item, please.
Item number 53 is an item for which public hearing has not been held, and there is a card on this item.
And the council calls forward, this is public comment for item 53. The council calls forward.
Point of order that the city clerk and CLA present, and maybe the city attorney, just present the options and present the issues so then the public can be informed about what those options are.
Okay, so let's hear from staff first, and then we do have 5 speaker cards submitted.
Basically, this was a referendum petition that I have certified to be sufficient. Charter Section 462 now gives the council three options one of which you must take within 20 days of my certification. You can repeal the ordinance, which is the adult entertainment ordinance. You can call a special election that occurs no earlier than 110 days nor later than 140 days from the date you call that election. Or you can place the measure on the next city regular election, which would be March 05. The reason we put it on today is November 12th would be the last practical deadline for you to take an action to put it on the March 04 election. If you miss that deadline, you obviously could call a standalone election and spend $5.5 million, but I don't think that's very practical. So you would then probably be down to two options: to repeal the ordinance or to place it on the March 05 regular election. And those actions have to be taken one of those actions has to be done between now and, from the practical side, November 21st. November of 04 is not an option for the council relative to this ordinance. And as soon as I certified the petition sufficient, the ordinance was suspended. It cannot be enforced. If you put it on a ballot, what you are asking the people to do is to enact the ordinance.
Just the ordinance until it's either passed by, if it's on a ballot, until it's passed by the electorate, is inoperative.
And obviously, we're also going through the argument process, and the argument process, depending on what the council does, if you repeal the ordinance sometime fairly soon, then we would not need the argument process. But the argument process is not controlled by the city election code. It is, but it comes in 15 days after we certify the petition sufficient. So that's ongoing as well. And that argument process applies to either 04, the March 04 election, assuming you take an action to put it on that ballot, or it applies to the March 05 election, assuming you take an action to put the measure on the ballot. But I can't stress, you have a limited number of options, and you have 20 days to exercise those options. Repeal, call the special election, or put it on March 05.
Okay, thank you for the overview. Let's now hear from members of the public who are here to address the council on this item, beginning with Sylvia Nickel. And Ms. Nickel will be followed by Vicky Casas, Ron Bitzer, Stephen Afriat, and Jim McQuiston.
Good afternoon, Honored President, honorable members of the City Council. Sylvia Nickel from the South Hill District of West Los Angeles. I appreciate all the discussions that have been going on. I also would like to throw out the question of why we have to discuss this, why we are here. It is because of the petition drive, and I do hope it will be fully certified that every signature is checked. Repealing the issue, which is the number one item, is out of the question as far as we are concerned. And I do not wish our city to spend valuable resources to put it on the March 04 ballot. That leaves the number 3 option, to put it on the ballot for March 2005. It may seem far away, but it's only 16 months. And we are quite content of having the sword of Damocles hang over the heads of the adult entertainment industry. Also, it would give us sufficient time to inform the population, the citizens of Los Angeles, and especially the signers of the petition that they did sign under false pretenses. They did not really understand the issue at hand. So I would appreciate it if you could put it on the number 3 option to put it on the ballot for March 2005. Thank you very much.
Vicky Casas?
Good morning, Council. As you all know, we've been in front of you for the last 2 years off and on this ordinance. We worked very hard to have it passed. We had a 13-0 vote that day, and we were quite happy. I believe that most of you believe this ordinance is good and that it would do the city good. So I would like it to stay intact, and I would like it to go to 2005 and give our correlation time to go out and educate the people of Los Angeles to exactly what these clubs are, what crime is committed in them, how much police force is used on them, and how much prostitution is taking place in every one of them. If we don't get this ordinance passed, then the next ordinance you're going to have to think of passing is legalizing prostitution and informing the citizens in this city what neighborhoods you're going to put the brothels in. Thank you.
This is Mr. Bitzer,
Yes.
and he'll be followed by Mr. Afriat and Mr. McQuiston.
Mr. President, members of council, my name is Ron Bitzer. I'm a parent and homeowner in North Hollywood. I want to thank Council Member Mizikowski for her leadership on this issue, and also Council Member Cardenas for his emerging leadership on this issue. And I know that when the 13-0 vote was taken in September, my council member, Wendy Gruhl, was not present, but I'm very interested to hear particularly her views on this issue. I was stunned to hear, I believe I heard you correctly, Councilman, that this is not a real issue in the city of Los Angeles, the international porn capital, that this is not a real issue. How close do you live to one of these businesses? I'm trying to raise an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old about 700 feet from VIP showgirls. Okay, so at issue, I believe, is the conduct occurring in these strip clubs that I believe is not covered by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And do I have permission to read the 8-page report of LAPD?
Not the entire 8-page report, sir. That is part of the file.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. But I would like to say that many of us believe that prostitution is occurring in these businesses and in the streets and motels outside of these businesses, and that in fact, if your September 16th action had been subversive to the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, we wouldn't have had paid signature gatherers collecting these 100,000 signatures. I would have been in the streets gathering signatures. Okay?
Thank you.
And additionally, we know that what these paid signature gatherers told the public was that this was a violation of freedom of expression. Even the U.S. Supreme Court has said in Candy v. City of Erie v. Candy land that taking one's clothes off in a club is stretching the First Amendment to its outermost limits. But what we were saying is that more than taking one's clothes off is what is going on in these clubs, and that I respectfully suggest that not allowing the voters of Los Angeles to vote on this issue is something that would be subversive.
Thank you very much. Mr. Afriat.
Good afternoon, council members. Stephen Afriat, representing a group of club owners and the campaign manager for the referendum that is before you today. I've had some discussions with some of the members of the council subsequent to the petitions being turned in, and let me share with you a couple of thoughts. On September 16th, this council hit my collective clients over the head with a 2x4. The purpose of the referendum was not to hit back, but to create an opportunity for us to have dialogue about coming up with an ordinance that we feel is constitutionally sound, that we feel is enforceable, and that we feel will solve some of the problems that some of your neighbors who have sincere concerns about impacts in their communities are experiencing as a result of some of the operators who have been less than responsible and causing these problems in their neighborhoods. We don't feel that the ordinance that was adopted accomplished that. We feel that it gave some false hopes to some people that it may be able to do that. I think it was a sincere and valiant effort on the part of the council. We are here today to ask the council to continue this item for a couple of weeks and give us an opportunity to do some wordsmithing with those of you that have been passionate about this issue so we can come up with a solution. Let me just give you a flavor of some of the things that we've talked to a couple of you about, for those of you that we haven't had an opportunity to do so yet. We're willing to live with much of the conduct portions that this council passed prospectively, so those who have made multi-million-dollar investments in their businesses will continue to operate according to their business plans. We are willing to look at additional conditioning on the permit process so that you can require additional security, trash pickup, affect lighting, and other things such as that. And we are also willing to take a look at further restrictions on off-site billboard advertising, but that's very complicated wordsmithing because there are some First Amendment issues around that. But I want to put those things on the record to give you a sense of how far we are willing to go to protect your constituents and to protect First Amendment rights that these clubs have, whether anyone likes that or not. That is the reality of what it is. Let me also say, as the campaign consultant for this effort, that our petition gatherers were instructed to say to people that approach them that the Los Angeles City Council has put a ban on lap dancing. Don't you think they should be working on other issues, and will you sign to repeal? They were instructed to be forthright about what this issue was, because it was important for my client to be able to determine whether there was political will out there in case this went to a ballot and went to an election. This was an important exercise for my client to go to as well. Did every petition gatherer follow instructions? Probably not, but that was what they were told to do. Let me also say, as the person who ran the last two bond measures for this council, Prop F and Prop Q, that it would be a difficult thing to put this on the ballot along with those measures. And I would hate to see that happen. I think we can work this out. I would like to see this come back in a couple of weeks. You still are holding the 2x4. You can still put it on the ballot in 05, but let's try to come up with legislation that we can enact right away. Thank you very much.
Mr. McQuiston.
Jim McQuiston, East Hollywood Community Association. It's too bad that the owners have put the city into this condition. I think it's a disrespect to this city. There are other ways of doing this, and I speak advisedly. I was in part of the federal litigation on porno houses, so I know that particular side of the area. But this is really not the way to get things done. Obviously, we're in a very difficult budget situation. I would have spoken on the other items, except they'd already been heard in committee, and I couldn't be there in that committee, unfortunately. Obviously, even $400,000 is too much to spend on something like this, even if we do put the police measure on the ballot in March. So it's really too bad that Mr. Afriette has come up and spoken this way, because he knows the decision has to be made next week, not 2 weeks from now. We don't think that this would be a good idea to go forward March 4th. We have a lot of serious concerns on the police measure. Probably we're going to have to go for a police tax. But just because we go on the ballot with a police tax is no reason to put this other measure on the tax. We need that extra $400,000 for our existing staff. It's just too bad that it's come up this way. Let's wait until March 05. We can live a little bit longer, as it's been said, and perhaps these people will clean up their act by then, and we won't have this problem coming up then either.
Thank you, Mr. McQuiston. This concludes public comment on this item. Turning now to council discussion, Ms. Miskowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. when this had been presented, the way the city clerk and the CLA presented it, of the three options we had, I absolutely believed then, and ultimately I still believe today, that March '04 is not an option. It may be, technically it really is, and we just had the council earlier debate on March '04, but I think the sentiment of this council is not to spend money recklessly. So I believe that that item's off the ballot, off the table. That leaves us with the other two. March '05, which means we suspend this ordinance, we have nothing, none of the controls that we talked about until we go to the ballot in March '05, 16 months from now. Or we have to rescind the ordinance, and we heard that there are offers or opportunities in a couple of weeks to come up with some suggestions. Members, I will tell you frankly, I am torn, because I think that we could potentially do something. I think it's going to be very difficult to do something because it has to be, according to the city attorney, substantially different from this ordinance. Having said that, I think the industry said that they are willing to work with us. But let me make some things very clear. I believe the reason the industry put this on the ballot and spent more than $400,000 to do it is because they didn't want to spend $400,000 to fight it legally. I think that they believe, and the city attorney believes, that this was a good, sound, legal ordinance. So the question is, do we take that risk? And the truth is, members, however we would try to negotiate, and I have said I'm willing to work, my staff is willing to work, the police department is willing to work, to come up with some bare bones items that they think could be in a new ordinance. We cannot get that done in the timeline of November 21st with an ordinance to be adopted before we have to trigger the others. So there would have to be a leap of faith that we would begin negotiating, say things are going well, but then after that shoe is dropped, November 21st has passed, and we don't have this threat anymore, what stick do we have? So members, we've got some options. My preferred option, I think, although the city attorney may have a problem with this, is to adopt the resolution to put this on the March '05 ballot and adopt the resolution to put an ordinance to rescind this. Get those instructions out there. Our drop-dead date is November 21st. Our drop-dead date might really be November 12th to really adopt the ordinance first reading, to have a second reading the following week. But I think there would be consensus around here that if we had to do something one way or another and put it off to November 19th or November 21st, there would be unanimity, because that would be the last day we could act. But I'm really interested in hearing my colleagues' discussion on this, whether or not both options are something. Again, we would only take one of them by the time we had to act, but at least it leaves us a little more latitude to figure out which one of them we have to take before we have to pull that lever. And it does, we only, as I said, we only would pull one, but this would give us the best opportunity, the best leverage, the ability to talk to the police department. The police department are very concerned with some items that they think are necessary. Annual permitting review. I appreciate Mr. Afriat and some of the industry saying they were offering other things. Some of the other things they were offering aren't legal. The city attorney's already told us that, so we can't put things in there that sound good but aren't going to be enforceable. So members, I look forward to the debate and believe that we really should move forward on 1 and 3 and figure out which one we will really pull the trigger on by the 21st.
Ms. Miskowski, was there a specific motion there?
A motion that we adopt the resolution asking for the submittal of the ordinances for the March 05 ballot and submit the ordinance, instruct the city attorney to prepare the ordinance and submit on the rescind ordinance 175471.
Second.
And the two Antonios second that. Mr. Labange.
I'd like to ask the city attorney to come to the table, please. Who's ever in charge of this? Both city attorneys? All three city attorneys on this issue here. This matter is before us now. It calls for this to be brought to the ballot. If we rescind the action that brought it to the ballot, does that preclude us from coming back with another ordinance that may affect, but that may have the support, I want to say this, of the community, that may have the support of the businesses that are operating, and especially the police department? Because when I talked to the police department, the biggest thing that they said to me, it's not a lap dance ordinance, but it's a prostitution ordinance. Have you heard that?
I've heard Claudia Culling, City Attorney's Office, I've heard a number of comments from the police department.
Right.
Including their concerns about whether they can enforce the various crimes that are going on inside the clubs without
Right.
some of these provisions.
Right. And I want to also just say, too, if that is the issue, then it should be described as such, if that's what the concern of the police department is, that it should be described as such.
Just wanted to let you know what your options are. You must act. If you want to put it on the ballot, you must instruct us. If you want to, you must act on this referendum with a final action by, practically speaking, the 21st of this month. Okay? If you now decide, or in a week decide, that you want to take two options to keep your options open, as Councilmember Miskowski suggested, you can
You could
do
speak
that.
to the chair because it's probably easier for you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can do that so long as by the 21st you take your final action, and then you can only take one.
Right. And what we did right now, that second the motion, is put them both out there on that, too. Okay. Now, as far as a compromise, would that be something that would people petition the government and they think the government is wrong in what they're doing, that petition has to be acted on, or could they rescind their petitions?
Once the city clerk has certified those petitions, that's the end of that action. Now we have three choices to respond to them. We can repeal the ordinance, we can put it on a special election in March '04, or we can put it on the next regular election, March '05. Those are our only choices.
If we repeal the lap dance ordinance, does the petitions have to be acted on by the voters?
No, that is your
that's the
response.
option.
That
That's
is
the
your
option.
response to that.
So that takes it off the ballot.
Once you repeal it, you have certain legislative opportunities to take other actions. One of the ones is what the council member is discussing about coming to some resolution with the proponents about what parts of this are not at issue in the petitions.
Well, and what could be worked on if there is something that could satisfy the maker of the motion that brought us to this point, as far as
Those
being able to
proponents
protect it.
of the referendum
Right.
had certain issues about the ordinance that were objectionable. 106,000 or so folks signed those petitions, and they've asked for this council to take one of three actions with respect to that ordinance.
Right, okay. Members, thank you. And also I want to address the gentleman from West Los Angeles. I'm very cognizant of every business, I think, in the city, of trying to understand them and the impacts in the community. In the 4th District, there are establishments like this here, but there are greater problems as far as life and youth alienation and gang violence. There are greater problems such as street prostitution, in my mind, that I want to see focused on first. But as the police department has informed me, there are problems within the nightclubs that should be addressed. And I think that's very important, and I think it's an important discussion. So I did not want to slight your area or slight Gene, who came all the way from West Los Angeles, and others to voice their concerns. I'm aware of that, but I also have a priority of what I think is important for us to look at this issue here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. I want to simply say this. We need to see this motion, now an ordinance, go into effect. This is the only way in which we are going to be able to enforce a no-touch rule in the city of Los Angeles. Too many of our constituents have told us and have expressed to us and have proven to us that unfortunately there are some bad actors out there in the community of this business, and they are spilling over into our communities throughout Los Angeles, and this is a legal way in which we can enforce that quality of life that needs to be restored to our city. I think that going to the ballot has been the hand that we've been forced to push, and I think that we need to go to the ballot, and I personally want to see to it that we do go to the ballot. I trust and expect that Ms. Misikowski is doing everything that she can to try to figure out what options we do have appropriately for us to effectively deal with this issue. But the way it stands right now, our hand has been forced that we need to go to the ballot, and therefore I think we will. Should we spend $3 million? Should this be the impetus to spend $3 million to go to the ballot? I personally don't think so. But we can put it on the ballot in 2005. It will not incur that horrendous cost on our constituents. And in an open forum, where you hear both sides and many sides of the issue, I think that you will see that the voters will stand with us and say, let's enact this ordinance and make it part of our city.
Other members wishing to be heard? Seeing none, we have a Misikowski motion on this item. Please open the roll.
The ordinance today to act on both, which we would then trigger a second reading. I would withhold on the ordinances to give us that date and continue this, let's take it to November 17th. The 21st is a Friday, which is our last day to act. We have it on the 17th. We at least have a report that can do second reading.
November 18th.
18th. Okay, and what I want to do is act on in presenting the ordinances on option 1 and 3, I believe, is the order of the agenda, and then withhold on the ordinances.
Okay, so with a withhold on the ordinance, that does carry over.
And then continue.
Until November 17th?
18th.
18th?
The only problem with the, okay, 18th.
Okay.
We have an evening meeting on one
No,
of
the
the
19th.
That's the 19th, okay.
Okay, without objection, that will be the order. Next item, please.
This is a time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
And we don't have requests from members of the public to address the council under general public comment. Public comment for today's meeting is closed. Next item.
Do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Let's do housekeeping.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motion shall be posted and referred.
And I believe in several of the closed session items, there's a request on behalf of Mr. Smith to continue item number 64 for 1 week, and that would be November 12th.
Okay, members request to continue item 64 without objection. Next item.
Can I clarify something on the item 53? Under the charter, if you don't have 12 unanimous on the first reading, it's going to go over 1 week. So the action I think we really took, it's going to go over next week and then will be continued by council action to the 18th to legally make sure we're okay under the charter.
So that would be an automatic request, but that the clerk will be aware of on November 12th.
Yeah, the
to continue to
council will
18th.
have it automatically continued, and it'll be on the agenda, but it'll have the notation that it's to be continued until the whatever date.
Next item, please.
And there is also a request, item number 59 of the city attorney, request that matter be received and filed.
Okay, members request from the city attorney to receive and file item 59 without objection.
Believe the rest of the...
Mr. Cardenas?
I'd like to request to continue item 63.
Item 63, request to continue. Is there any objection?
For how long? 1 week?
Okay, for 1 week, without objection, that'll be heard again on November 12th.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Cardenas.
It's a mistake. Item 62, the firefighter issue.
Item 62.
I apologize. 62.
To November
Thank you.
12th, not 63. Okay, any other items to continue? Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. President, I believe that those are all, and I believe Mr.
Okay.
Parks...
The balance of the closed session items are still on the desk. In conformance with California law, the council will now adjourn into closed session.
And Mr. Parks needs to recuse himself, I believe, on 55 and 56.
That's correct.
Okay. Sergeants, please clear the chambers.
5 is settlement in the case of Benuelos versus City of versus Gerald Gates et al., and that's in the amount of $150,000.
Okay, and let's take that with the next one as well. Take them together?
Yes, item number 56 is settlement in $135,000 in the case of Corrales versus Rafael Perez et al.
Okay, let's open the roll on those. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those items are approved. Thank you very much. Why don't we take up...
Item number 54 is an appropriation of funds for outside counsel. And
Let's open the roll on that item, please. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 1 no.
Okay, that item is approved as well.
item number
Just pause
57.
momentarily. Okay, Mr. Parks is back, okay?
Item number 57
Yes, let's...
is
item is that?
settlement in a workers' comp case, and that's in the amount of $112,000.
All right, let's open the roll on that. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved, colleagues, as well. Next item, please.
Item number 58 is settlement in a workers' comp case, 100% permanent disability, and that's in the amount of $485.60 per week for life.
Okay. Let us open the roll on that item, please. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That item is approved as well. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 63 is settlement in the case of Toll versus City of Los Angeles, and that's settlement in the amount of $59,000 to the tolls and $133,870 for construction of a turnaround.
Okay. Let's open the roll on that item, please. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved as well. Next item.
Item number 60 is settlement in the case of Damon Bankston versus City of LA, and that's in the amount of $290,000.
Okay. We can please open the roll on that item. Madam Clerk, please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Thank you very much. That is approved. Next item.
And the last case, item number 61, in the case of Keith Hatter versus City of LA, and that's in the amount of $195,000.
Okay. Let's open the roll on that item. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved as well. Thank you.
And that clears the desk.
Okay. The desk is cleared, colleagues. Do we have items for posting and referral? We've done those already. Okay. Colleagues, now it's time for announcements. Any announcements? Mr. Tom LaBonge.
Tonight at Mellons Hall in the James Bridges Theater at UCLA, there's a great, if you all had time, which I know we don't, I'm going to try to get there's a production that put together called Los Angeles Plays Itself. And it's scenes from Los Angeles over the years. And the person who put this together is Tom Anderson. It's a wonderful collection of work from Billy Wilder all the way up through Chinatown and other Blade Runner of what Los Angeles looks like in the films and how it depicts. So I just think if you have time out there, your listeners, 7:30 tonight at Bridges Theater at UCLA, Mellons Hall. Rebel with the cause, too. Exactly. Right there at the observatory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaBonge. We appreciate that announcement. Any other announcements, colleagues? Seeing none, okay. If I can ask everybody in the chambers to please rise for adjourning motions. Adjourning motions, starting on the left. Nothing. Mr. Parks, you have one?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd ask us to adjourn in memory of William L. Kelly, who was the first African-American to serve as second in command of California Highway Patrol, appointed by Governor Pete Wilson in 1995, and he ran a 10,000-man department, 100 area offices, supervised the daily operation of the California Highway Patrol before retiring in 1999. He joined the department in 1967, was promoted to sergeant in 73, lieutenant in 83, became only the second African-American to promote to the rank of captain in 1986. He has a variety of community activities. He was born February 1st, 1942, passed away at the age of 61 on Thursday, October 30th. He will have his funeral services at 11 a.m. Thursday, November 6th at the First AME Church. Interment is at Inglewood Cemetery. He leaves his wife, Shirley, and 4 children.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. Mr. LaBonge, second from Ms. Perry on that, and Mr. LaBonge.
Yeah, want to just remember last week when we adjourned in memory of the firefighter lost his knife. His name wasn't identified at the time, but Stephen Rucker from Novato, California, who leaves a wife and children, who lost his life, who came all the way from the Marin County area to San Diego, and I asked that we adjourned in his memory. I wanted to call his name Stephen Rucker.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Labange. Mr. Zine.
Colleagues, please join me in recognizing tribute to Vincent DeGia. He passed away September 27th. 67 years old. He was an engineer with the oil company in France, married with 3 children and 2 grandchildren. He is the father of Beatrice DeGia, who is a photojournalist with the Los Angeles Times. He was a great father, husband, and friend. He will be greatly missed by all who knew him. He is survived by his wife, Solange, son, Michelle, and daughters, Nadine and Beatrice. May Vincent DeGia rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Any other adjourning motions, colleagues? If not, we wish that our colleagues who are leaving town safe journeys. Mr. Reyes?
Just want to announce the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, PLUM, will be started at 2:45.
Okay, PLUM will be at 2:45. Mr. Zine?
The personnel will meet at 2:45.
2:45 for Personnel Committee as well. Safe travels, everybody, and if you please call the roll. Thank you very much, colleagues. This meeting is adjourned.